Drew, this is Commissioner Hanson. Are you able to hear us? And Kathy, same?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Is there anything else that anybody else that we need to wait for before we start this meeting? I haven't heard from Commissioner Anderson, but I would expect that he'll be here.
I'd go ahead and get started.
Okay.
It's 5:30, so.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and we'll start the meeting this evening for the Planning Commission on May 5th, 2021. My name is Commissioner Hanson. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. Call this meeting to order. Our invocation this evening will be given by Commissioner Musso. The Pledge of Allegiance, if you would all join in, will be given by Commissioner Shield.
Our Heavenly Father, we humbly bow our heads before you this evening, give you thanks for this opportunity we have to use the Planning Commission to give the concerns and requests. Grateful for this opportunity to serve the city. We're grateful for the chance we have to. We ask that you please bless this audience this evening. Like have some order, discuss things in a manner which is civil, feelings that our feelings and change. I'm grateful for this opportunity, freedoms that allow us to live in this wonderful country, and to have opportunities like this in the community. So we pray for these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to recognize on the stand our new city attorney, Thad Siegmiller. Thad, welcome again. I think it's the first time you've been up here with us, right? Yeah. Because of COVID, we've all been meeting in separate places for the most part. Our staff members, Drew and Eldon and Kathy, are not here in the chambers. Usually they are sitting up here, but because of COVID, they're here in the building. They're just in a separate location. Where that becomes important is during the public comment of any of our agenda items. When you come up to the microphone, if you could speak clearly and state your name for Kathy. And I may interrupt you to ask you to do that. It's not that I'm trying to be rude, but Kathy takes notes to all of our meetings. We just want to make sure that we get everybody's name and input for the record for City Council to see that will help you fight your cause. The first item on the agenda this evening is an approval of the agenda. Commissioners, if you have any comments or suggestions, otherwise I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Is Commissioner Musso so moved?
Okay, I've got a first and a second. Commissioner Fitzampu is the second. Kathy, if you weren't able to hear that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda items are approved for this evening in order that they appear. The second item will approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. If you've had a chance to look those over or have any updates for Kathy, please let it be known at this time. And otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve those minutes as well.
Commissioner Shield, I would move to approve those minutes.
It's Commissioner Van. I second that.
We got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The minutes have been approved for April 21st. Number 3 on the agenda item is the declaration of abstentions or conflicts with any of the items that we have on the agenda this evening. Commissioners, if you could go ahead and state those at this time.
None.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I do not have a financial interest, but I live in the area of 4A, 4C, and 5A. I plan on taking part and voting in each of those. You guys have any? No? All right. Drew, just a clarifying question this evening. Until Commissioner Anderson gets here, will Commissioner Bullock be able to step in and vote?
yes.
Is that necessary? I guess, yes. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Item number 4A, this is consideration and recommendation to our city council for the Iron Horse Phase 2 final plat located approximately 4155 South, 1000 East. The applicant is Lance Chornos. Staff, I'll turn the time over to you for staff report.
Thank you, commissioners. Just let me get that up for you. Is that plat showing up on your screen now?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Applicant is requesting approval of the final plat for the Iron Horse Phase 2 as stated. This particular subdivision proposes 27 lots and the area of coverage is 10.08 acres. The zoning at this location is the single-family residential 8,000 square foot minimum or the R18 zoning designation. The preliminary plat was approved back on March 9th of 2016. Staff's reviewed the request proposal and the proposed final plat indeed conforms to the approved preliminary plat. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Iron Horse Phase 2 subdivision onto the City Council. And that's based on the findings and subject to the conditions, and they're just the standard 5 conditions for a final plat. I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners have on Iron Horse number 2.
All right, commissioners, I'll open up the floor for any questions to staff.
Drew, when this thing came, this is Commissioner Musso, when this came about as a preliminary plat, there was something with lots 55 and around that corner? Has that all been resolved?
Yeah, that's actually why they asked for an amended preliminary plat. I think you guys recommended that on the City Council. City Council wasn't real comfortable with it, and so the applicant just went and took care of the situation that was kind of causing them to leave 54 and 55 into a different, phase 2B. But that's all been addressed to my understanding. And so they're here before you asking for the final plat. So.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff? If not, I'll look for a motion on this agenda item.
This is Sheila. I just have a question. What's going out on Washington Fields Road? Is that going to be a commercial? What's that area?
Commercial.
Yeah, it's zone commercial. So it's owned by a different individual or LLC or how, I'm not sure, but it's different than the developer of the lots. The person who owns this piece over here. What's it labeled on here? Let me blow that a little bigger for you, but
Says Lucid Blue Investments.
yeah, so it's a different owner than the people developing this phase 2. So, but it is zone commercial, Commissioner, has just to clarify that for you. So,
This Commissioner Hanson, when that commercial piece does come to the city, is that when they'll be responsible for improvements on Washington Fields Road?
yes, and they'll be responsible, for everything that doesn't go in on this knuckle up here,
Yeah.
across the street from 55.
Okay.
They'll take care of anything else that was, their part on that part of their lot, as well as on Washington Fields Road. Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the final plat for Iron Horse Phase 2 subdivision and send this on to the city council with the recommendations, the standard 5 recommendations that staff has outlined.
This Shield, I would second that.
Got a first and a second individual voting. Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Fitzampu,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion passes 4A. We moved on to city council. Item number 4B, this is consideration and recommendation to the city council for the Sundara at Siena Hills Phase 1 final plat located approximately Arena Roja Drive and Grapevine Crossing Road. Turn the time over to staff for their report.
I want to give you kudos on that pronunciation of that road, Chairperson Hanson. That was good. That's good.
Yo puedo hablar español cuando quiero.
There you go. Applicants request an approval of the final plat for, as stated, Sundara at Siena Hills Phase 1. This particular subdivision is proposing 71 lots and the area coverage is 11.07 acres. The specific location on the zoning for this is zoned to Siena Hills Planned Community Development, or Siena Hills PCD. The preliminary plat was approved back on August 12th of 2020. Staff's reviewed the requested proposal and the proposed final plat conforms to that approved preliminary plat. Also let the commissioners know this is one of the areas designated as the short-term vacation rental area in the Siena Hills up there toward the water tank, in that far area of Siena Hills. And so with that said, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Sundara at Siena Hills Phase 1 subdivision onto the city council. And of course, based on the findings and subject to the conditions. And this one also is just the standard 5 conditions for a final plat. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners have on Sundara Phase 1.
Thanks, Drew. Commissioners will open up for staff questions.
This is Shield, are the alleys dedicated or are they private owned?
Private. Actually, all the streets within it are private.
Staff or commissioners, if there's no questions for staff, I'll look for a motion on this particular item.
It's Commissioner Van. I recommend approval to City Council for the final plat approval for Sundara at Siena Hills Phase 1 subdivision located at Arena Roja Drive and Grapevine Crossing with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
This Shield, I second.
Got a first by Commissioner Fitzampu, a second by Commissioner Shield, individual voting. Musso,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Fitzampu,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. 4B passes unanimously. We'll move to city council with the recommendation for approval. Item number 4C, this is consideration and recommendation to the city council for the Roadrunner Ridge Phase 4A final plat located approximately Rockwood Court and Bronco Drive. The applicant is KG Development, Kent Stanger. I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thank you. As stated, applicants requesting final plat approval, Roadrunner Ridge 4A. This particular part of this development, this specific subdivision is proposing 5 lots and the area coverage is 2.17 acres. The zoning at this area is the residential agricultural 1 acre minimum or RA1 zoning designation. And as you notice, they're utilizing the bonus density program credits. The preliminary plat was approved back on October 9th of 2013. Staff's reviewed the requested proposal and the proposed final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Roadrunner Ridge Phase 4A subdivision onto the City Council. That's based on the findings and subject to the conditions in your report. And again, I'll be glad to answer any questions on Roadrunner Ridge 4A.
Thanks, Drew. Commissioners, I'll open up the floor for any questions to staff. And if there's no questions, I'll look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Musso. I'd make a motion that we submit for the final plat approval for Roadrunner Ridge Phase 4A subdivision located approximately Rockwood Court and Bronco Drive onto the City Council with the 5 conditions outlined by in the staff report. The applicant is Kent Stanger.
This Shield, I'd second.
I've got a first by Commissioner Musso. I've got a second by Commissioner Shield. I want to ask a clarifying question to Drew. Are these motions and their wording okay, Drew, or do we need to change our wording a little bit with regards to recommending it or approving it?
Yeah, there are sometimes a little, what I would try to recommend, you know, and if you can not so much read the agenda as much as probably go to my report and where it says states the recommendation. If you wanted to read that verbatim, it'll make it easier for all of you gentlemen. That's just my advice.
That's what I was reading, Drew. I just screwed it up.
No, yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but yeah, no, you're close. You're close enough. And Kathy gets, as long as we have that intent on what you're doing, we get that touched because it's just a little grammatical and that's okay.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. I've got a first and a second on the motion. Individual voting, Musso,
Aye.
Shield,
Yes.
Fitsampu,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 4C passes unanimously. We will recommend that to City Council for approval. Item number 5A, this is a roadway dedication. This is consideration and recommendation to the City Council for the roadway dedication for 4200 South Extension. The applicant is Washington City, and we are privileged to hear from Brandon Wright.
Okay. Action requested is roadway dedication plat approval for a portion of 4200 South Extension. The owners are DL Hoops LLC, Desert Canyons Development Incorporated, Crimson Park Townhomes LLC, and DSG Holdings LLC. The applicant is requesting approval of the roadway dedication plat for a portion of 4200 South Extension. This includes a portion of Treasure Valley Road and 4200 South extending to Washington Fields Road. Public Works Department has reviewed the plat and approved the design. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this roadway dedication plat for a portion of 4200 South Extension onto the City Council for approval. And just to clarify this a little bit farther for you guys, this we contracted with Quality Excavation. This road will probably be complete within about a week and a half to 2 weeks. It'll tie over to Treasure Valley Road and be open for, just need to do a final inspection on it.
So will they
So
open
it's
it?
built.
So they'll open it as soon as it's,
Yeah, as soon as we can get signage up and everything safe, then it'll be open. So,
hallelujah.
Thanks, Brandon. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brandon or staff on this agenda item?
I guess there's no conditions, right?
No.
Oh.
Before we look for a motion to approve that, thank you, Brandon, and all of the staff. That was something that I know for me as a commissioner, received numerous requests to get some kind of a road or a breakthrough there from Washington over to the, or Washington Fields Road over to the high school. So I think you guys did it in record time. Excellent. On number 5A, I'll look for a motion from the commissioners.
This is Shill. I would recommend that the planning commission recommends this to the city council to approve the road dedication for a portion of 4200 South extension to this. There we go.
It's Commissioner Van. I second that.
I've got a first by Commissioner Shield, a second by Commissioner Van. Individual voting, Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 5A passes unanimously. We'll move that to City Council with a recommendation for consideration for approval. Item number 6A. This is a minor subdivision request. This is consideration to approve a conceptual plan for the Deer Meadows minor subdivision located approximately 2530 South, 300 East. The applicant is Jared and Kara Plew. And staff, I'll turn the time over to you for a report.
Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is requesting approval for the Deer Meadows minor subdivision. It's located at approximately 300 East Merrill Road. The applicant is asking to split the present 3.42 acres into 3 parcels, with parcel 1 being 0.99 acres, parcel 2 being 1.76 acres, and parcel 3 being 0.51 acres. The proposed minor subdivision is currently zoned residential agriculture half, with agricultural 20 to the east, residential agriculture half to the south, and county property to the west and north, both of which are agricultural 20. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal, and the proposed Deer Meadows minor subdivision conforms to the standards as set forth in the zoning regulations and subdivision ordinance of the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Deer Meadows minor subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. The findings are the standard 2, and the conditions, I'll read those off. Condition 1, all improvements shall be completed or bonded for prior to recording the final plat. Condition 2, a current title report policy shall be submitted prior to the recording the final plat. Condition 3, any referenced control monuments related to the subdivision shall be in place prior to recordation of the final plat. A stamped and signed letter from a professional land surveyor licensed in the state of Utah that verifies that the reference control monuments are in place shall be submitted to the Community Development Department for filing prior to final plat recordation. Condition 4, that a post-maintenance agreement be recorded prior to the recording of the final plat. And lastly, condition 5, the easement vacation needs to be approved by the city council prior to city council approval of this minor subdivision. The easement and subdivision can run concurrently with each other on the same city council agenda. And I want to make it known that condition number 1, which reads, all improvements shall be completed or bonded for prior to recording the final plat. Staff is recommending that we remove that condition. It came to our attention that a development agreement has been signed with the city that takes care of that, so we can remove that condition. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
So this is Commissioner Musso. What's going on in front of the property currently? Because I know I drove by it the other day and they were digging it up and putting in, I don't know if it's an 8-inch water line or if it's a sewer line or whatever. And the only reason I ask is because 2 weeks ago, we had people putting the cart in front of the horse on our subdivision requests and I when I drove by that this week, I looked at it and I thought, okay, do we have the same thing going on here? So Brandon or somebody, can you tell me what's going on there? I'm getting a 2 for here. I'm getting 2 for 1.
Gentlemen, as a reminder, when you come up, please state your name and speak as clear as you can for Kathy.
Earl Rasmussen, Pro Value Engineering. Y'all know Brandon. They're just putting in the 8-inch water line. We already went through the approval process and had plans stamped before any work was begun by Bryce Kelsey out there, the excavation crew. And then the other thing that they're doing is just grading lot 2 so Jared can begin to build his house once we get the subdivision approval complete.
And Commissioners, I might just add a little bit of the process with this development has been held up with the transition amongst city departments that had some people leave and be replaced. And so not that there's any special allowances being offered here, but that's part of the condition of the vacation of easements that's underway now. We've got that up and going, and the easements had been prepared to be vacated a couple of years ago, and then the applicant withdrew them, and then they were going to happen again, and then some turnover happened. And so it's just one of those things that's turned over a little longer. It needs to be what's in the process. And the goal is hopefully that'll be completed. That requires public notice and publication as well. And so the city departments are on top of that. That's underway. And in theory, the hope is that those vacations are approved before a final plat can be recorded.
Public Works, I'd like to also add that, like Eldon brought up, there is a deferral agreement that has been brought before the city, and the mayor has signed that. So that is in place for the rest of the improvements as well.
This is Commissioner Hanson. One of the questions I had is, what is this going to look like on our map that we're looking at on the left-hand side of the properties that backs up to, I think they said it was county property. Will there be an exterior fence constructed the whole way along those, or what will that look like when there's future development on the west of it?
On the west of it, if he decides to do a fence, I don't think unless that's in that deferral agreement, I didn't see a fence in the deferral agreement, but right now there's a ditch and a nice row of trees there, and so they want to keep those trees. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All access will be right on that east road, correct? Nothing on Merrill?
yeah, that's correct, on East Road. Oh, there you go. There's a pretty picture. There's ducks, deer, and there's everything there.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff or Mr. Rasmussen, I think you said?
Yeah.
And if not, I look for a motion on this item.
This is Shill. I would recommend that we approve the Deer Meadows minor subdivision based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions that staff requested, and forward that to the city council for approval.
This is Commissioner Musso. I second that.
I've got a first by Commissioner Shield. I've got a second by Commissioner Musso. Individual voting, Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Fitzampu.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 6A passes unanimously. We will move to city council with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks. We'll now move to item number 7A. This is a public hearing for consideration and a recommendation to the city council. Oh boy, Drew, you spoke too early. I'm probably screw up the name. So we're going to call it the Mangata Townhomes Preliminary Plat located at approximately Washington Parkway and Main Street. The applicant is Wes Davis. We'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. I think you got the name right. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Mangata Townhome Subdivision located Main Street and Washington Parkway. The applicant is proposing 161 townhomes on an area coverage of 22.55 acres. It's 7.14 density units per acre. Each dwelling will be a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage townhome with a double-car driveway. The zoning designation at this particular location is planned unit development residential. The surrounding zoning is open space to the north, R16, and administrative professional to the east, planned community development to the west, and R16 to the south. This parcel was recently rezoned into the planned unit development residential zoning designation. and the proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Mangata Townhome subdivision to City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions, all of which are the standard 12 conditions. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Commissioners, I'll open the floor for questions for staff before we open for the public hearing. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing, and it's worth noting on the record that all of the commissioners have received a number of public comments on the agenda items this evening. There was a public comment that was submitted and noted and will be forwarded to City Council with regards to this item. If there's anybody here in the chambers that would like to make a public comment, if they could please approach the microphone, state their name, speak as clearly as you can, and we'd like you to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And we'll go from there. If anybody would like to speak about it. Eldon, were there any additional comments on this particular item that came in after the fact?
There were not. All the additional comments have been given to the commissioners, which I handed out earlier before the meeting. We weren't going to read any of those this evening.
Okay. On the next item or this one as well? Which just want to clarify if you're speaking about both items.
Yes, sir. Both items.
Yeah, as a matter of clarification, on all of the submitted written comments, we don't want to establish any expectation that each one be read openly in the meeting, but we do want to provide them to the council and the commission so that you're aware of them as you make your deliberations.
Yeah.
If anybody on the commission or the council wishes to highlight any of them, they certainly have station to do so, but we don't have a requirement that they all be read openly.
Okay.
Okay, so
Real quick, let me go ahead and look for a motion to close the public hearing.
moved by Musso.
Sheila, second.
I've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioner Musso.
So Drew, on these, or Eldon, I guess, tell me if these driveways are going to be 25 feet long, and what is 161 doing off by itself? I mean, did they just, it was an afterthought and they had a little bit of extra space, so we're just going to throw it in there?
So driveways will be 20 foot long. There's a 20-foot setback from that. And then unit 161, I believe, came from the revision. They had to shift the whole plat to the south to allow for the roadway to the north, if I'm thinking right on that. So that's kind of why it's an oddball by itself. They ended up shifting the whole plat to the south.
Will it look and feel like the other units?
Yes. Yeah, exact same elevations as all the others.
Did they give us any elevations or rear elevations? It's Musso again.
Not at this time. No, we haven't.
They-
Yeah, they were part of your PUD, gentlemen, if you know. So yeah, you did see them. You approved them back at the PUD process.
This is Commissioner Hanson. One of the questions I had relates to the public comment that came in. I just want to make sure, Eldon or Drew, if this project adheres to the density restrictions or my mind just went blank, the density requirements that we have in this area. Is it exceeding those or is it under the threshold?
We don't recommend approval if we're exceeding that density. We're very strict in that area. And I know that's one of Drew's pet peeves is to make sure we're on top of that density unit.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for the staff or possibly the applicant if Wes is here this evening?
This is Sheila. Is this the one that we talked about and they were going to put grass and a few things in?
It is.
Yeah, that's what that shaded area, Commissioner. I'll just jump in. You know, this kind of, I don't know what you call it, crisscrossed areas. Those are the grass areas themselves. Not to step on Eldon's toes by any means, but
And then is the other one the detention basin? The one that's not hatched out? That one?
well, I'm gonna let Brandon, because I don't want to speak. I think this is actually tied to the detention that goes this way. There's a
that's-
massive detention
Yeah, that's-
basin citywide. And I think it goes to that one if I remember right.
parking everywhere.
Yeah.
So Drew and Eldon, how different is this compared to the other townhomes that are the bane of everybody's existence? I can't think of which ones they're called right at the moment, the Salisbury ones up north of the turf farm. Because these, I mean, those units, at least there was like 4 of them in a row. There's like 8 units in a row here. And I don't see any place where people for visitor parking except for very few spaces along the outside periphery. So my fear is that this thing's going to be even worse than that.
Well, Eldon, if you don't mind, because you're not probably familiar with the Bluffview townhomes is what he's referring to.
That's it.
It's a huge difference, Commissioner. First of all, Bluffview townhomes is private streets, single car garages with single car driveways. Okay, so that's the apple. The orange is here. I have public streets that are a lot wider and bigger. I have 2-car garages and double driveways. So it actually adds twice as much parking versus that Salisbury development. Does that help clarify that maybe a bit?
It helps, but it still doesn't.
And there's probably 4 times the visitor parking, even though it's dispersed in other places than that Salisbury development you're referring to.
Okay.
My name is Rick Meyer with Bush and Gudgel. I just wanted to second, Drew said it really well. Granted, there's not, when we think of the 50-foot public right of ways through there, it's nice and wide versus the narrow corridors in that Bluffview, or is that called Bluffview apart or townhomes?
Yes.
But, so there's not a ton of parking spaces on here, but like Drew said, there's a lot of parking. I mean, there's not a lot of areas to park on the 50-foot right of way, but you probably don't want people parking on the street anyway. So we put extra parking off street, kind of a thing. So.
Do you know offhand how wide the Bluffview private streets are?
They're 35. Do you know, Drew? They're 30 something, I believe.
They're 34 to 35, yeah.
Mhm.
And no sidewalks.
So these would be significantly wider, but.
Commissioners, any other questions for Rick or staff on this particular item? Rick, I guess I have one quickly. You don't need to beat this too badly, but with regards to the amenities, we'd asked for a couple of changes. Can you just give us an update on what was changed from when we originally saw this plan to what it looks like now?
Oh, you're pulling on my memory strings here. So one of the main things that changed was the phasing, and the portion on the south end. So we've got an exercise station and a pavilion here, and part of that trail will go in phase 1. And then I don't know that a ton has changed on the amenities since the last time, other than that.
Yeah, I definitely remember that, the pavilion. One of the things that I wanted just to, it may be in our writing and I missed it, but what is that trail going to end up being? Is it going to be paved? Is it going to be crushed granite? What are we looking at? Because there was some discussion about that.
Right. We got it called out as a natural surface trail. So that's going to be along the lines of a compacted gravel or something like that. So.
And that's the entire length of it, even though it's different colors here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, no, Rick, let me jump in on that, Rick. Do you see
My-
my two red lines on here? Everybody? So the
Yes.
color in brown is the chat. The council and the developer agreed in between the red lines going this way is going to be concrete or asphalt.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for clarification. So, all right, cool. Got
Good.
it. Rick, thanks.
By the way, you said it perfect. Mangata Townhomes.
That's
You
2
nailed
for
it.
2.
So,
Watch me
yeah.
slaughter the rest of the evening. Thanks. Man. Commissioners, any other questions for staff on this item or Rick? Otherwise, I look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we send along to City Council the preliminary plat or approval for the Mangata Townhome subdivision located at Main Street and Washington Parkway. And recommend approval with the conditions and findings to the City Council with the standard, well, with the conditions outlined from the staff report. So there's 12 standard conditions.
It's Commissioner Van. I second that.
I've got a first and by Musso and a second by Commissioner Fitzampu. Individual voting, Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Fitzampu,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item number 7A passes unanimously. We'll recommend, or we'll move to City Council with a recommendation for approval. At this time, we'll move our agenda along to item number 7B. This is a preliminary plat public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for the Solace at Coral Canyon preliminary plat located approximately northern end of Highland Parkway. The applicant is Cole West Homes. And I will turn the time over to staff for their report.
Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for the Solace at Coral Canyon subdivision. It's located approximately Highland Parkway and 1500 North. The applicant is proposing 233 lots on an area of coverage of 120.20 acres. The zoning designation at this particular location is planned community development. The surrounding zoning is Coral Canyon Planned Community Development to the north, east, south, and west. The secondary access for this subdivision will continue off of Highland Parkway and drop into the Sullivan property, which ties into the northeast end of the Siena Hills subdivision. The proposal identifies the secondary access as being done in the future, and staff has concerns that this secondary access needs to be addressed at this time and recommends adding a condition addressing the secondary access on the preliminary or as the Planning Commission see fit. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined and recommends placing a condition as to when the secondary access will be built. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Solace at Coral Canyon subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions, all of which are the standard 12, along with condition 13, which states no certificate of occupancy will be issued until the new water tank is installed and completed and passed off by Washington City. No final inspections of phases will be passed off before completion of this work. And we will answer any questions at this time.
Thanks, staff. Commissioners, I want to run something by you at this time. Sometimes, as you know, in the past, I've opened it up to a public meeting before we've asked questions, because sometimes there's enough comments that it may spur a question from us that we like to ask. If there's questions that you'd like to ask before the public comment section, please feel free to do so. If not, I think I want to open I would like to consider opening the public meeting now and here's some of the comments that are here, and we can get to the staff questions after that. But if you have any now, then feel free. I don't want to cut you off.
This is Commissioner Musso. I just have one. So why is it imperative that the water tank be moved? So Brandon's going to come and address that.
Brandon Wright with Public Works, the water tank that's there now,
Mhm.
we can't provide fire flows and pressures because we're at the same elevation.
They can't hear, Kathy can't hear you.
So the water tank that's there now, we can't provide enough fire flow and water pressure that's required by the state. So that's why the additional water tank is coming into play.
So they're going to add a second one is what you're saying?
Correct.
Is that just
That
gonna
will service this area, right?
So it'll service that area specifically.
It'll be tied into our system, but it'll specifically service this area.
And at whose dime is that going in on?
So there's a Highland Parkway impact fee that will be collected. The city's, it's out to bid right now. The tank is out to bid. So
All
the
these
city
phases will be impacted with
yeah,
their
the city-
impact fee.
got it out to bid to pay for it, build it right now. So
And that would be a separate impact fee in addition to this
that's correct.
tallest standard impact. Okay. Thank you.
Brandon?
I'll summarize for Brandon with the microphone here. The location of the current water tank does not provide sufficient system pressures to meet the requirements for fire flow and other system requirements. So the project requires that a new tank be installed at an elevation that accomplishes that. That tank will be funded through an impact fee that'll be imposed on the properties in this area that'll be serviced by it.
That was a lot better than what I said.
And it'll be located on the other side of the freeway. We'll give you a chance, the new properties. Commissioners, any other questions that you wanted to ask before we do this? Okay,
This is Sheila. I have a question on the road. Seems like we're having a little bit of pressure put on us on that road. Is that the road that we talked about before going through the wetland area?
no,
Okay, so that's a different.
that was the previous.
The one that you can see from
Yeah,
the secondary access, I believe, is the one that we'll see coming, as you can see, as you're driving up I-15 as it
Yeah.
comes down.
So would it be fair to say that no occupancy permit would be, certificate of occupancy would be given until that roadway's done? Is that some way to do it?
that's certainly what I intend on discussing before we make a motion this evening. Yeah. This will be above exit 13 up on the ridge.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is my favorite part of the meeting. Can everybody tell? Look at the smile on my face. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the public comment section at this time. I do want everybody to know, and for the record, like I mentioned earlier, that we have, as commissioners, we have received all of the comments that were submitted online. And about 4 o'clock this morning, I started reading them. And I thought to myself, I should probably make a note of who it is that submitted comments, because I've had meetings that I've attended in the past where people get up and they'll read the comment that they submitted. I want to make sure that that's clear, that that's not something that's necessary this evening. And so I made this list of people that had submitted something, and I showed up here this evening, and Kathy, as awesome as she is, has one for me already. And it's in alphabetical order, and it says everything I wrote down at 4 a.m, but much cleaner and better. So Kathy, thank you very much. I point that out because I want to make, and I don't know if this is out of order or not. If they can't, if it is, they'll fire me and I'll be all right with that. But the people that submitted a comment, if you hear your name, please understand, with all due respect, we don't need you to stand up and read what you had submitted. We have it, we've looked at it, done the things that we needed to do. All of these comments will also be forwarded on to City Council, who obviously makes the final decision on these things. What our job as a body is to do is to make sure that it meets the guidelines that the city has outlined for a subdivision. We're not the enemy. Some of the comments sometimes make us think that. We're certainly not the decision-making body either. That's no disrespect to us. Our job is to do what we can to help City Council vet some of the things that are coming. If I mess up your name, I apologize in advance. Tara Allred Brian and Leslie Atkinson, Dan Baker, John Beasley hit us twice. Gordon Burns, shouldn't say hit us. John, I'm sorry. There was 2 different comments that he submitted that were totally separate from each other. Gordon Burns, Jim and Patty Burris, Michael Cook, Jackie Cooley, Suzanne Daly, Karina Danzy, Mason Danzy, Rick Downey, Dana Fitch, Timothy Fitch, Vicky. Oh, sorry, Vicky. Grousey. Okay. Stephen and Donna Heath, Nanette Hinton, Richard Noble, Susan Lewis, Dennis and Shirley. Actually, that was to a previous. Dennis and Shirley was to a different comment. I'm sorry, different agenda item. John and Sue Moss, Jeffrey Peacock. Jeff, we got 2 from you as well. Kelly Powers, Lori Saunders, Nancy Schreiber. I'm going to say Elon Shannon. We got 2 from Elon as well. Eileen Shannon, Julie Tanner, Brian Trapp, 2 entries from Brian. Galia Turley, Judith Webb, Sandra Webb, Susan Lewis, Richard Noble, and Nanette Hinton. Those are comments that we received, we've reviewed, we've read. And in addition to that, if anybody here in the chambers would like to stand up and give a public comment, I ask you to please remember to state your name for Kathy, who's taking notes, speak clearly. We are not the enemy again. We would like you to limit your comments to 3 minutes if you can. As rude as it might seem, if we start to go a little long, I'm probably going to go like this. I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to somehow keep this under the 7-hour time limit that we have. Really, we don't, but sometimes it feels that way. So we're happy to hear it. I personally welcome your comments, and I'll open it up to public hearing at this time.
Good evening. I'm Dick Saunders. My wife Lori did submit, but I didn't, so I get to talk. Looking at these plans, I'm really excited that they're actually going to complete the mesa. We have lived up on the mesa for 13 years, and it is a beautiful piece of land up there, and it needs to be developed. And it needs to be developed in a reasonable way. At least that's my opinion. We understand that the developer has a right to make money. In fact, their goal is to make as much money as possible, which is what their goal should be. But this is a planned community development. And this one happens to have about 20 years of history in Washington City. And in that history, we've developed a look and a feel for the community. There are parks like Highland Park, which is up here on the mesa. There are pocket parks all through Coral Canyon. These parks were paid for, I'm sure, in combination between landowner, Sitla, the city, and us homeowners. In fact, the homeowners pay a special assessment every year. And I understand eventually it'll come to an end, but it was a good investment, because what happened is we have a community that is unique to Washington City. I have certain ideas of my own, what I think is reasonable for this development. I think it should be single family as what's been presented. It should be single story because the rest of the mesa is single story. In fact, even the current development on the other side of Telegraph, the views, it was just today I was down at Home Depot looking up. You could see Zion in the distance. And you can look over top of the views, and because they're all single story, all the vista is still there. And as beautiful as St. George is, if you are on the other side of St. George, look, you can't get by Four Master Ridge and see anything because of all the construction. I think what they've done so far is really good. So I'm hoping that single story is what the plan is. And I'm hoping that it's going to be construction that looks like the rest of the community. We haven't seen any elevations, so I really don't know, but I'm presuming it will be something similar to what is at the views. One of the things missing is there's no pocket parks that I can see. It's just wall-to-wall homes. And another thing that's kind of unusual, and I think is a thing that would break the back of most support, is on these lots, there's 3 different basic sizes, but the 50 and 65 foot width lots have possible 10-foot backyards. Now, Coral Canyon does have homes that have 10-foot backyards. There are probably 2 that I'm aware of. That's a unique situation because they squeezed in, they either had views or something that made that accommodation. This particular plan, 82% of the lots are projected to have a 10-foot backyard. Now, a 10-foot backyard is probably good for a patio, but not much more. I'm surprised that this was submitted because just recently a submittal for areas 5 and 8 was turned down by council because of those setbacks. I think that's a major issue for this development. Quickly, I'm going quick.
One's looking at you, Dick. Go ahead.
I know that's the pressure.
It's your reputation you're putting on the line after 3 minutes. You're at 5 minutes now, but go ahead.
But look at all the people that didn't get a chance to talk. The construction issues with this, and I think that the recommendations for the second access are completely appropriate. In fact, I would say that instead of it being a condition for completion, it should actually take place before construction starts. And one of the reasons for this is because of that park. It's a well-used park, Highland Park. If you've looked up at this area, there's a lot of remediation that's going to have to take place. There's a lot of construction debris that over the last 20 years has been piled up in that area. Now, it's either got to be buried or it's got to be hauled out, in which case all those trucks are going to go past Highland Park. That's a safety issue with as popular as that park is. The other issue is the city just spent a ton of money slurrying our streets. Just happened this year. In fact, since we've been there, it's the first time it's happened, and it looks beautiful. Unfortunately, that will be where all the construction equipment goes through. So I recommend that that second access be a condition before construction starts. Lastly, what's happening in Washington City is we're becoming mature. As you saw in some of the previous things that you are sending forward to council, we are filling up with higher density units, which is fine. We need that. But this is one of the last premier locations of view lots in the city of Washington. And it's a premier location that doesn't necessarily need to have multi-million-dollar homes on it, but it is a location where you can allow to have more than these higher density units. Basically, I'm saying we need to help balance what's happening in the city. Yes, we need entry level. Yes, we need affordable housing. Yes, we need medium grade. And I think the city's done a good job of that. But we also, there's nothing wrong with having a premier neighborhood. And the way things are selling, it doesn't matter really what they build up there, it's going to sell. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that Coral Canyon stays what it started as, and that is a premier community of Washington City. So I leave it in your hands, but I would certainly recommend that we table this until they come back with another plan that shows less density, more pocket parks, make sure that we put that secondary access in first. And I thank you.
Perfect. Before anybody else gets up, or it's okay. Real quick, before you start, you can go ahead. It's fine. Before you start.
Please.
I love the fact that Dick was the first one to get up there. Assume you all know him. You're his neighbors. We know him almost as well because he comes to every planning commission meeting. And that is the only reason I didn't cut him off. He's earned his time. Like I said, if all of you don't want to be here all night, the best thing for you to do in order for us to understand, trust me, we understand the issues that you have said. Everything he said, we've heard every single one of them in the comments. At some point, what you want, in my opinion, from a commissioner is that we're going to go to bat for you and try to help you. We understand the side of the developer as well. And at some point when you're speaking and you go 32 minutes like Dick did here, our eyes glaze over and we're kind of like, what did he say again at the beginning? Like, I understand. Now I'm only joking and you know that. I appreciate your comments, but please, if we could keep them to 3 minutes, I assure you it would be in your best interest to do that from our commission's point of view. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen. I noted when you read the list
Got your
here,
name.
first of all, my name is Jack Douglas.
Thank you.
I live in Coral Canyon on the Mesa. I also noted that in reading the list of the people that had submitted the letters to the city council, my name was not included, and I did submit a letter to them. Jack Douglas. She's apparently admitted it.
Okay, Jack, we'll make sure that it gets admitted. I don't see it on here either. Thank you for letting us know.
Okay,
that, though.
and it's pretty concise. My comments deal with one simple part of the issues that are at hand here, and that is the access road itself. We live near the Highland Parkway. We live right on the corner. And there's been a lot of talk about the secondary road access. And the comments have been made that what they're going to do is wait until the project gets underway and then they're going to put it in later. We, and I think I speak for many in the community, are against that simply because it would bring construction equipment, cause a safety hazard and other reasons by having all the access up Highland Parkway, the one access into this new development area. We highly recommend that the council suggest that this new development area, if it is to come, is accessed by a secondary road, and that should be a primary consideration. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Nailed it. Way to go, Jack. Oh, I forgot. By the way, here's another thing I learned on being on the planning commission. I'm going to try to make sense of this one because it makes sense in my mind. Whether or not I can get it out, that's important. We learned in one of our training meetings in the state of, I guess every state, but we'll use the state of Utah at this point. When people come to city council meetings and planning commissions, when there's clapping and yelling and agreeing, whether you're agreeing or not agreeing or yelling at people or doing all these different things, they call it clamoring. And we heard some instances of legal cases where clamoring went against the people that were in the crowd clapping or yelling or whatever it was they were trying to fight their cause. And the clamoring made it worked against them. And so I understand like what just happened now. I don't have a problem with it, but you all may eventually have a problem with it if things like that happen. So I would encourage you to please just as much as you can, keep it to yourself. There's actually legal cases about it. And Mr. Siegmiller probably knows about him. I was educated about it and I thought, okay, that makes sense. I think it protects your interests, it protects our interests, and it holds for a better public meeting. With all that being said, go ahead, sir.
Evening, gentlemen of the commission. My name's Bart Pace. I don't live on the plateau. I live down in Coral Canyon. I just had a couple of questions that hopefully staff or representative from the owner could clarify for me, and I'd reserve my comment till after the answer to the first question. What is the actual height restriction for the top of the plateau there? And then the second one is what is the plan for the exterior wall surrounding the community? Just quick questions on those, because it has a lot of effect on what my comment is.
So based on the answer to that, you have comments one way or the other?
Yes.
Is there a chance from the developer that I can get that answer within less than 10 seconds? If they're here? Only so he could continue, if you don't mind.
Podium with you. Share the podium.
Good afternoon, Drake Howell, Co-West Home. 10 seconds.
I'd like to keep it 10 only
question.
because, yeah,
I wanted to have 10 minutes, but I'll take those later.
I'm going to give you those later.
So height restriction, Coral Canyon as a planned community specifically mentions, this is in the PCD documents, right? Not the HOA documents, which are the CCNRs, but the zoning documents have it plastered all over that it's a 35-foot height restriction.
Okay.
And just as a little preview of what I'd share in a minute, but we have actually developed entirely new floor plans for Solis. They're super tasteful. We are very excited to obviously get to the market with them. Every floor plan is a single family detached residence.
Right.
So that's that question. And then
Exterior walls.
as
Yeah.
far as the exterior wall around the community, if you want to take a look around the views, we call it a hybrid is what I'm anticipating. It would either be a hybrid or a full view, which is a vertical wrought iron type slat tube steel type of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
I know
that makes sense, right? When
It's
we're
hard,
selling
Drake.
up there, we're not doing anything to restrict the views.
Awesome. Thank you. Drake, we'll come back to you for sure and give you the amount of time. It's a little unorthodox that we would do that, but I wanted to make sure you get a chance to speak what you want with that answer, and I didn't know the answer.
No, thank you. Both those answers were actually comforting. I guess the major concern I have for the community being down below, our views are as important to us as the views of those that will be purchasing up there. And what I noticed, and I'm glad to see that they're going to continue the bike path, because that actually provides more buffer from the edge of the hill to the back of the homes. My concern is that there is quite a berm between the bike path and what will be the back setback of these homes, which looks like on all of the rim homes, it's 30 feet. That berm is as tall as 12 feet in spots, which means from the edge of the hill, you've got the bike path, and then you've got the berm, which raises the house 12 feet higher than the bike path, which means that those homes are going to be more visible from below than they are without that berm. So it's my request that they consider denial of the plat until they lower those berms. I'm assuming it would be less expensive for them, because to create 12 foot of height on top of the existing elevation would be quite a haul of dirt, which is very expensive. Because my goal is to not be able to see anything but the peaks of these homes. Like, the rest of the communities look pretty good already, but I'm just worried those berms are going to raise those homes up so high that they'll be completely visible from below. And again, our views are as valuable as those that are going to be purchased. Thank you.
Bart, thank you.
Good evening, Elon Shannon. I live in Highland Parkway, so obviously this is an important piece for me. Just a couple of things, and these are based on my conversations with Drew, so I just considerations here. The easy one is you made a comment, Commissioner Hanson, that all of our comments will go to the council, when in a previous situation relative to Co-West, I asked Drew whether our comments to the planning commissions will be forwarded to the council. Drew told me that they will not. Now, maybe I misunderstood, or maybe there's some difference, but I would just want to ensure that we don't have to go through this process again of providing that kind of comment. So that's why.
Let's do it right now.
Okay.
Drew? Well, I tell you this, when I get my email for this meeting and it has the comments, I see the council's name on it as well. That's my assumption that they're getting it. And Drew, can you confirm that with 100% certainty that the council gets all of the submitted comments?
Well, I'll tell you, there's an apple and an orange difference here. So I want the gentleman at the podium to understand this as well as everybody listening. The public hearing on a preliminary plat is just a planning commission public hearing. City council does not hold a public hearing on a preliminary plat. The difference is all the other ones, and when I explained it to the gentleman there, was that there was double public hearings. So you have a public hearing at the planning commission, you have a public hearing at the city council. So yes, that's why they didn't go, because you have that opportunity to public hearing at the city council. Now, again, COVID's thrown a lot of different things at us the last year. And I think you and I talked probably before COVID, if I remember right, and it was a whole different scenario. But regardless of that, it doesn't matter. But, you know, this is a different avenue. So I have no problem if this planning commission wants to have these passed forward. I can do it. But again, the city council's already seen them, because they get the same packet that these planning commissioners get tonight.
Let me clarify. Sorry, Elon. Let me clarify for myself then, Drew. Am I mistaken in thinking that city council has these? Was I wrong?
No, if they looked at this packet, they have them right now.
All right.
But again, they won't see this for 3 weeks.
Yeah, so just to maybe clarify that the city council is not bound by comments at the planning commission, especially when they have their own public hearing, say on a final plat or something else. But the city council has access to all of the record of the planning commissions. Mostly what they look for is the recommendation that the commission sends, but they have access to everything that's been transacted here, and they can go look at your comments. But the fact that somebody commented at a public hearing for the planning commission doesn't restrict their ability to comment on a public hearing that's at the council. And so when there's public hearings involved, those are governed by state law. They're required to be administered how they're administered. And so the public hearing from the commission doesn't just automatically translate into the public hearing at the council.
But the only reason I bring this up is because, you know, there's a bunch of us old folks on the Mesa. I walk my dog every day and I talk to a lot of people there. And it's really interesting how many of them don't have any idea how to use a computer, or they send comments to the HOA, which has nothing to do with this. And so you're only getting a fraction of the comments. And I can tell you that the comments that you have heard reflect a greater majority of people than actually submitted the comments. The other thing is, again, a conversation I had with Drew quite a while ago, maybe about 2019 pre-COVID, was regarding the Sullivans and their negotiation tactics. Now, I'm not privy to all the details there, but as a guy who's negotiated a lot of contracts over the years, it seems to me that once the construction begins and we have homes coming up there, our negotiating position with the Sullivans to get access road paved through their property is going to get weakened. And therefore, to me, the number one priority with all of this, and I think you know, Cold West has done a really nice job. In many respects, there are issues with the spacing that Dick talked about, all of that. But to me, the number one issue is that access road, because in a prior meeting here, when we were discussing the vacation homes that Cold West is going to build, it was also noted that we are not in compliance with what the fire chief wants relative to our existing Area 3. And now we're going to double the number of homes. We're going to have 500 homes now and only one access road out. And that's just not acceptable. It's a safety issue beyond a traffic issue. And finally, I'm tired of having to fix flats from nails coming out of construction trucks that have been going through our streets for years because of this construction. We finally got Highland Parkway developed, and I'm really not looking forward to more debris and flats coming out of those construction people. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
No.
It's hard, isn't it? It's very hard.
No clamoring, no clamoring. My name is Susan Spivey, and I'm a relative newcomer to Washington City. I've been here about 9 months, and I too live on the Mesa. Obviously, I'm right on Highland Parkway. So my office view faces where the all the construction trucks will happen. I bought the house knowing that there would be additional development on the upper Mesa, but it seems to me that the density, and looking at some of the original maps that you go back, I'm involved with the Washington City Active Transportation committee, and you look at some of those original maps and they're so different from this. And there was a big park supposedly in the middle of this other mesa. So there's so many things that seemingly has changed in order for Coal West to maximize their investment, which is a detriment to the community in a lot of different ways, just from a density and traffic and safety and all of those other issues that have already been so eloquently discussed. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys should come together. You get 6 minutes. No, I'm joking. No.
I've got 20 minutes to go here. I'm Glenn Shriver. I live in Coral Canyon. I just want to make one quick comment before I get to what I wanted to say. And that was, we originally, when we moved to this area, we built a house with a 10-foot backyard. And we'd talked about a pool, but then we put a patio in and we couldn't even get a kiddie pool in there after that. So, you know, you're putting up these homes up there that people want to buy and perhaps spend the rest of their life, and they're going to be pretty small backyards, but that's just my opinion. I just wanted to talk about I know it's been talked about, the water tank and the road. The comment was made that those are for, if nothing else, for fire protection, getting ambulance, getting fire trucks in there and everything else. Well, if we're going to build a lot of homes up there, there's going to be a lot of kindling. Seems to me that what those are used for in the future need to be used at the present once the construction takes. And then just one more quick thing, and I'll get out of your hair. We have pickleball courts that Drake Howell and Coal West. I'm not sure Drake was part of the conversation, but Coal West did promise us 4 pickleball courts down there once they started all their other construction. And in a recent council meeting that Drake was at, the question was, where are the 4 pickleballs? We only have 2. And he summed it up by saying, well, things sometimes just change. To me, what he said was, our word is not our bond. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tony Grissom, and I live in Coral Canyon on Slick Rock Road, on the north side of Slick Rock Road. And my neighbors and I, we've all spoke considerably when looking at these plans, that our biggest concern is that it could very easily damage our view depending on the setback of the houses on the top of the ridge. Now, they said, you know, I don't know that to be a fact, that they're going to be somewhere within 10 feet or whatever of that ridge, and they're going to be looking in our backyards. So we will have no privacy. But bigger than that, is it morally and ethically correct when Coal West and or their agents, when they sell the property, say, you're going to have this view, and all of a sudden today, because we want a new project, what did we say, or where did it go? That's probably the big thing. And I don't think it would bother any of us if maybe they could amend the plan to have the setback far enough so these people are not looking in our backyards. And so with that, I would suggest or plead to y'all to reconsider and possibly you know, adjust or amend the plan to where that doesn't bother the views and honors what they did say, as well as any of y'all purchase a house and your agent tells you, hey, you're in the country here and nobody's going to bother your view. If it was you, you probably would be here as well.
Thank you. Oh, you guys are making my day. If that's it. Is that it? No, I was thinking you probably have a lot to be educated on, Susan, right? Is that it? Yeah. Because you just moved here. There's plenty of people here that will give you the history that we've learned on the Commission of Coral Canyon. So, yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Gerald Glenn. I live in Coral Canyon up on the hill. And we didn't really talk about, or we never was explained to us about the water tower. Who's paying for that? Is it the people that are already living there? Are we going to be assessed some kind of a fee, or is it going to be the developer and the people moving there is going to pay for that? And again, I'd just like to echo what other people have said. I think it's really important that we make sure in advance that the road's done, the water tower's done, all the things before they start building, because as we've seen before, after they start building, it doesn't seem to be like we have any teeth. You know, they're more willing to do what they say they're going to do in advance, but once they get started, you know, it's just too bad for us. And so there's some real issues there. I think those lot sizes should be comparable to the lot sizes that are already on the ridge. You know, along with the construction of the homes, they should be comparable to those already on the ridge. You know, I've listened to the mayor now for 5 years that I've been here, and he always says that Coral Canyon is the gem of Washington City. So let's keep it that way. There's no reason. We've got plenty, and we're building plenty of different kind of homes in other places. But some of us, you know, I'm retired, and this is my last home. I'm going to live here the rest of my life, and I can't afford to move. So I have a vested interest in what goes on here, and I hope that you guys take that into account, because there's many people living there that's just like me, that we don't have any other choice, and we like it. We love it. I mean, this is a wonderful, beautiful place, and let's keep it that way. We don't need to make this another California or someplace else. You know, we've seen what happens there. So I would just hope that you guys would take that into consideration when you're doing your recommendation. I think they need to rework this. I think that they've brought it forth. This is their kind of their first draft at it or whatever, and it needs to be taken back and reworked. So that's what my concern.
Hi, Drake Howell, Co-West Home.
Drake,
I just wanted to
Drake,
step up
Drake.
because I didn't know if I'd be able to get a chance to speak. But
Real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to give you ample opportunity.
Okay,
If
perfect.
you want to take your shot right now in the public hearing, or I'm going to shorten it, or you can take it after we close the public hearing.
I'm happy to wait till
I
everyone
encourage you
makes
to wait.
comments. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We absolutely want to ask some questions for you, for sure. Is there anybody else here that would like to bring up something that maybe has not been addressed that we can address with the developer or city staff in the public comment section?
Commissioner, if I may, just on the question of the impact fee for the water tank, to clear that up, it was stated previously. I'm just going to restate it so that understanding is correct. The Utah model to fund infrastructure development is either require that it be paid by the developer or collect an impact fee that would pay for it. And so in this case, this is the proposal was that an impact fee be levied. The model of impact fees is such that it does not apply retroactively to already built properties. It applies to new builds. And so that would be the model in this situation as well. The impact fee would be applied to lots that have not yet been built. So those that are already built have paid whatever fees were applied at the time of their permitting. This would not propose a new fee be applied to already built homes. It would be applied to the new applications.
So this is Commissioner Musso. So I have a question in regards to that. Brandon, do they have any estimates as to how much that water tank is going to be?
Brandon loves coming up here, everybody.
We ought to just give you a mobile mic to sit back there.
I don't think that we don't have any bids back. It's out to bid right now. And I don't have the engineer's estimate on that. Drake, have you seen the engineers? He's got it.
Okay.
It'd be better to have him do that because he's part of it. I don't have that estimate.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. At this time, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
This is Shill. I make the motion that we close this public hearing.
This is Commissioner Musso. I second that.
Got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed at this time for 7B. At this time, commissioners, I will look for direction from you as a collective body as far as if you want to ask questions to staff and the developer now, or you'd like to hear from the developer. I personally would like to ask our questions with the staff and have Drake come up in a few minutes, as opposed to having him stand there the whole time when it may not be applicable to him, if that's all right. You guys okay with that? Just questions directed to staff at this time if we have any.
Maybe one discussion item for the commission. Staff's recommendation did address the secondary access, as many of the comments. The comments seem to intimate that the secondary access would require that construction traffic use that access. And I think there's two different things. Requiring a secondary access is one thing. Requiring that construction traffic use the secondary access is another thing. And the third thing is whether it would be better to send construction traffic down off the ridge and through another residential development, or whether to use that one. And so as the commission considers all of those, there's multiple factors at play when you talk about requiring a secondary access and addressing the comments that were made.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that point, I understand exactly where every single one of you are coming from as far as the traffic, because I drove up there this afternoon and I went straight up Highland Parkway, and I would hate like the devil if I lived on that street to have trucks coming by my house. And given the fact that it's taken 15 years, literally 15 years to develop out that first phase, that means you're going to be seeing trucks freaking forever, you know? Now, but the other thing is just like Mr. Segmiller pointed out, is if we put in a secondary access off the back side that goes down through the Sullivan property and then down through the Sitla property, it's going to have to go down Grapevine Crossing, which is right through the middle of another subdivision. And I drove on that road today also. And that road is actually even narrower than the Parkway where you guys are at. So it's a freaking catch-22 here, you know? And I don't know what the answer to that one is, because like I said, that's a valid point. And I don't think you can force people, the construction guys, to go up or down one specific road. You know, they do in Stonecliff, they have a secondary egress into Stonecliff, but that's all private property. And the guard can say, no, you got to go down to the construction entrance and go up through there. I don't know if that's even a valid, or if it's even possible.
There are times that the council has required that construction access use a secondary access. It's not common. Usually the council needs to find actual conditions of public safety or common good to require that. The secondary access is much longer, also potentially passes through a park. And if we've got nails dropping out of truck beds, as been suggested, there'll be a lot more roadway with nails dropped onto it than if they use the other one. And so that would be up to the council's discretion ultimately. The staff's recommendation for the secondary access is not connected to construction traffic. It's connected to safety and just the emergency issues. If there was to be something that occurred, at the intersection or just to the north that blocked that access out, the city and the city departments would want a secondary way to get safety vehicles in and out of the homes up there. And so the recommendation, the citizens obviously have linked it to construction traffic, but staff's link was not to that. It was to just the safety element. And that's why staff's recommendation also says we would want it in by the time permits were being issued, which is by the time that any additional house is going to be on the ground and additional residents moving in, the city would like there to be two ways to get people in and off the mesa.
So this is Shill. What's the emergency access location Is that something that could be used?
That's it. That's the secondary access, and that's actually.
Well, I thought the secondary was up higher.
That is, it is up higher.
But
It's a half mile from where the current.
You can see it there on the map.
There on the map.
And this is separate property. But that's literally a half mile from this point. Point where the current paving is, it's about a half a mile.
Thad, this is Commissioner Hanson, could you take just a minute? I think some of us on the commission understand this from experience and dealing with some other issues with other developments, but there's quite a number of comments that came from people about the view. I know what I want to say, but from a legal standpoint, could you speak just for a minute about development with regards to views and blocking them and all that?
So typically the view protections are usually built into the private restrictions like the CCNRs and such. At preliminary plat, we don't have a lot of analysis of that at this point. You'll notice on the plat, you don't see any of the layout of the lots, of the offsets or the setbacks on the front back. So typically at final plat, you'll get a map that shows a building pad versus the lot. You're seeing some of the detail there. And so you'll look at those hashed lines, and those will help you have an idea of, how close a home can build to the back of the lot. You see that? And so as far as view guarantees, the city doesn't guarantee views beyond their code and their hillside committee. And so up here, any view guarantees would be vested in the CCNRs and the private restrictions of the association.
Okay, thank you. This question, Brandon, I hate to have you come up again. I'm not asking you to, but I had a question about with an additional water tower, will that improve in any way any of the water situation with residents' homes that are already built? Or is it just going to be an improvement for the newly constructed homes?
It'll definitely improve the existing homes. It'll be tied into our system. So it'll definitely help everything up there.
Does it help with pressure? Like, do they have pressure problems out there?
And you have to maintain certain pressures and flyer flows for, to meet the state's requirements.
Yeah.
So it'll definitely help.
What's the capacity that we've sent out to bid?
I believe the state was 1,500 gallons per minute.
As far as the capacity of the new tank?
Oh, is it a half?
500,000. And so that's one improvement for the locals that already exist, is they've got another 500,000 gallons in storage up there. But they will be, those gallons will be situated at a higher elevation, and they'll be connected to the exact same culinary system that exists today. And so they'll benefit everybody, but the new lots will pay for that.
All right. And the stipulation is that the water tower needs to be done before the certificate of occupancy is issued, correct? Not prior to construction, like someone mentioned was possible.
Correct.
Okay.
With the similar concerns is that'll be needed once people start moving in. And so that's kind of the deadline that it's tagged to.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions or comments for staff?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Bullock. In the Drew or someone in the phase before this, the high ridge, I believe is what it's called. What were the setbacks on those homes in there?
Sorry, I'm sitting here talking. I realize my mute's on. Which area were you talking about?
The Highland Park subdivision. As you're coming up off of Telegraph and you drive up to Highland Park, what are the setbacks on those pre-existing homes?
In here?
Yes.
Well, if you zoom in, you can tell that some of them are at 10 as stated by one of the residents there. Some are at 20 and some are at 10 and variations in between.
On the side yards as well?
No, the side yards, I'll try to zoom in on there for you, see if, I can. The code in Coral Canyon was you're allowed, and again, over the years, people have I'm not sure even how to word this. I will just say that Coral Canyon as a whole, and don't be offended, Coral Canyoners, but a lot of times setbacks weren't followed like they should have been over previous years. And I'm talking way back in the mid 2000s when a lot of these homes were built, because the code said there's supposed to be a 5 on one side and a 10 on another with 15 feet between homes. So if I had a 5 on one side, my neighbor had a 5, I could have a 10 on that same side, but then that means my other side has to be a 5. But I always had to maintain 15 feet. But if you go through with the aerials, you can kind of see where maybe not so. And this, I just picked this little cul-de-sac, gives you a good, differential. You can see some of these homes are probably at 10, and some of them with the poles are at 20 or more. So I know I really didn't answer your question, but that's the best thing I can give you right there of what's on the ground.
Drew, can you pull the map to show the ridgeline areas so that the commission can get a feel for the setback from the ridge slope?
You mean the what's out there right now in aerial? Or are you talking about the plat itself?
I'm talking the aerial for what exists on the east ridge.
East or west? Because they're both kind of about the same, but.
East doesn't have a trail, so let's look at east.
Well, they both do.
Okay.
You got this trail here. They're on both sides.
Yeah.
Here's
so
the east over here with my arrow. Can you see my arrow? Or not? I heard it doesn't show up, but.
We can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the trail you can see. I'll just highlight it out. As we all know, Drew loves to draw. It's in my name. So there's a trail on that red line. And then over here on the west, this red line is a trail as well. So they do vary on east and west, but there's a trail on both of them. And it's hard to tell what the slope is off of here and over here. Maybe the folks that live there know it better. I wish I would have walked it. I'd love to, but I might get chased off. But
so Drew, this is Commissioner Musso.
Yes.
I looked at these plats this afternoon for the existing Highland Parkway or park, just to see what they were in comparison to what's proposed. And a lot of the lots, believe it or not, to everybody in this room, they're very, very similar. The ones that are 55 feet wide, there's a lot of them that are 55 feet wide on the cross streets. So on Clear Point and yeah, so especially on the lower end, there's a lot of lots there that are 55 feet wide. And then along the edges, the lots obviously are wider and deeper and bigger to accommodate the more custom homes. So for the developer's sake, I mean, you guys can beat them up all you want to, but literally it's very, very similar. The product mix is very, very similar to what's already there as far as the lots are concerned. So it's not that there's only going to be, so many with 10-foot setbacks and that. And it's also dependent upon what kind of product they put on the lot. The building envelope might stop at 10 feet, but the house itself might be shorter. So it might have a larger backyard. So anyway.
Commissioners, any other comments for staff? Drake, here you go, buddy. It's nice to meet you finally. A lot of people have suggested you and I know each other and you're giving me money, but I promise you I've never met you. So it's good to meet you.
I was going to say the same thing, Mr. Chairperson. It's great to see you in person. We've been seeing each other over Zoom for way too long. This is my first time in person at a meeting in over a year. So it feels really good to maybe be seeing a little bit of normalcy back with us. Drake Howell with Colwest Home. Obviously, I've been chomping at the bit to get up here. This is our livelihood, no question. We love it. We love developing. We love building. We certainly understand the angst and the concerns that come with any change. It's so natural for us as humans to just naturally resist change. I appreciate what Commissioner Musso just mentioned and not to I'm sorry to point you out individually, but I guess I just say that because what he just reviewed, I think is our attitude as a developer builder is Solus as we have designed and as we have submitted to the count or to the city for review is really so well suited and conforms so well to what the vision of Coral Canyon is and what specifically Highland Parkway has been up on the ridge. And we are sensitive to that. And I think that plan shows that. I've taken pretty copious notes and I'm happy to respond specifically to comments and questions that were raised. I may go in reverse order if you're okay with that. And I'll try to be as expeditious as possible. Maybe before that specific response, I gave a little preview when you invited me to do my 10-second response to the earlier question, but Solus is going to be a great new neighborhood subdivision in Coral Canyon on the very south end, literally adjacent to the north side of Highland Park, the city park. We will have our community center, which will be about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. We'll have fitness, we'll have a gathering space, we'll have a 25-meter pool, which is a length that you need to do laps. And we'll also have a spa. Those will both be outside. It will be well designed. We've already done kind of design schematics for that. And we're pursuing plans so that we can get those going as soon as we are able to. In addition to that, we have ample open spaces. And I don't know if the staff who's controlling the screen wants to kind of go through that, but I could point out specifically all of the multiple areas of open spaces. I think there was a comment that there are no parks, and that just isn't the fact. We have many open space areas, and there, not to mention the Highland Park or the Highland Trail, as was mentioned before, will continue going around. Solus will continue to contribute to that premier status of Coral Canyon as a master plan development with these 233 lots. We'll have our own separate HOA. I don't think that has been brought up today, but we will not be part of the master HOA. We'll be totally separate, no connections via assessments or anything like that. We'll be totally separate. The zonal impact fee, which has been brought up a couple of times, that is financing the construction of the water tank, which I think was bid out today by the city, is specific only to these 60 developable acres and the Sullivan piece up north of us on the ridgetop. Those are the only two parcels that zonal impact fee approved by the city council, I think 2 or so months ago, are relevant to. No other construction. Even if, and I think they're all built out, but even if there happened to be a lot that was left in Highland Park, the phase just to the south of us, that zonal impact fee would not be attributable to that vacant lot to be built on. This is only everything north of the existing Highland City Park.
What are you estimating the cost of that tank to be?
So all in, I'm trying to remember, I think it's in the $1.8 million range. And what that factors down to, and Brandon, please correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but when the city council approved the zonal impact fee, it was based on engineers' estimates. And those engineers' estimates pegged it at that amount, if I remember correctly. And then that distilled down to a per unit basis. And my recollection of a per unit over and above the normal city water impact fee would be a plus $2,200.
No way. If you take 1.8 million and divide it by 233, it's $7,700.
It's
right there.
Excuse me, Mr. Musso. Our development is not the only land to be benefited by the new tank.
But the development above you, there's just not very much of it.
Understood. I guess the message is, Commissioner, is that whatever the amount is, once the bid comes in, will be amortized over the lots served in this area.
So how many lots does Sullivan anticipate?
They have not done any planning.
Okay, because there's ground up there that's developable, at least looking at an aerial, is a lot smaller than yours. I mean, I'd be surprised if there's 50 lots up there.
Yeah.
So you're looking at an impact fee of at least $5,000 to $7,000 is what I would estimate, based upon 1.8 million.
Yeah. The engineers in the city have come up with something different. And I'm happy to send you the form that went to the city council that they based their decision on.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't want to.
I'm just looking at, okay, if you're sticking another $7,000 or $5,000 on top of your impact fees. I mean, at some point, you know, you can't start building a house until you're $130,000, $150,000 into the dirt. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up because that has direct relevancy to this requirement for a second access and the costs that just keep piling up on this. But we have a plan to address that. So I'm just noticing as we've been talking, it looks like Drew outlined common areas that we have planned. I think there's a couple that he probably hasn't gotten to on the north end, but we have ample open space, again, not to mention the trail that surrounds the entire development. Okay, so impact fee amount and area served. I think we responded to that. Again, Commissioner Russo, I'm really happy to send you that if you would like me to send you the analysis that was presented to the City Council. Just let me know. This will be comparable to the existing Highland Park. Our feeling is that the floor plans and elevations that I think I mentioned, we've done totally new. It won't be like what you see at the views. If you want to get a little preview, we're building a new model home down at the Views Model Complex. That's the piece where the fire station was originally planned. It's just on the south side of that four-way lighted intersection. We're right in the process of building a model there that will be respective of the homes that we plan to build in Solis. I want to point out, while staff has this plat up, there's been several comments or some discussions about our treatment on our sensitivity to the prominent ridge line. I have to tell you, one of the first things that I did as we were approaching this development is I went right to the city's hillside ordinance. And what you'll see is a great amount of respect for the ridge line, the prominent ridge line. If you can see, and I'll leave the mic just for a moment and point, and then I'll come back so I can stay on mic. I'm going to point kind of a solid, or not, a darker dashed line. What that line represents, as you look in the notes of the plat, is that it is a 50-foot setback from the prominent ridge line. That conforms to the requirements in the city's hillside ordinance. I look at Highland Parkway and or park below us, and sometimes I wonder if they even conform to that, but we certainly are. That's a pretty ample, pretty substantial setback from the existing prominent ridge line. So we certainly want to respect that. It's the prominent black ridge of the city, and what we're doing there will certainly contribute to its look and feel in the city. Let's see. I think there was a comment about how this is higher density. I think that's probably been sufficiently addressed, that it's no density beyond what was approved and really conforms to what's below us. Just a note on traffic. We hear they're paying about construction traffic. I often walk our sites because I'm, obviously doing that for my work, and I regularly stoop down and pick up a nail. I know it's probably like that whole starfish thing at the ocean. What good is it going to do if you throw one into the trash? Not starfish, but nail. But I try to pick those nails up when I can see. And I mean, construction traffic's not a win for anybody. But I do want to point out that Highland Parkway through Highland Park is a 66-foot publicly dedicated right-of-way. So it's really challenging to restrict public access to public roadways. And it's a wide right-of-way. It's a 66-foot local collector, which is meant to serve more traffic than a local residential road. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I talk a little bit too much like an engineer. No offense, Jason. The rear setbacks, there were some questions about setbacks. We conform to the established approved Coral Canyon setbacks in Solis. We are not asking for any variance to the existing setbacks approved in Coral Canyon. I think I mentioned that our floor plans will be single story, and our elevations will be very tasteful. They'll look, again, I encourage you to go. It's not, the exterior elevation is not really finished yet, but when it is, go and look at that home we're building on the south side of Telegraph. Let me address, this is kind of the bigger matter. Let me address the second access. We visited with staff, obviously. After this staff developer meeting we were at some time ago, we met in person with the fire chief. Yeah, correct. Thanks, Commissioner Schill, for pointing that out. You can see in our plans, that goes to the property north of us, which eventually goes to the existing water tank, not the new water tank. The new water tank is over in the Desert Preserve on the north side of the freeway. By the way, that's been approved. Sitla's conveyed the property to the city. The city, I think, bid it out today, so they should be receiving bids on the 18th of this month. So kind of where that hinge point where our property ends is just where north of where his little pencil is. There's a kind of a line that goes, yeah, it's just below that. That's where our property ends and another property takes over. And then similarly, kind of going straight up and down in that aerial is where our property ends to the west. And so I guess I just want to point out that all of this land that we've been exploring, we've talked to staff, we've talked to the fire chief, we've talked to planning staff, we've talked to our property owner adjacent to us. We're talking to a developer who's under contract with that property. And long story short, we're collaborating, we're working with them in order to find a way to make this second access possible. I think kind of underlying that, I can't overemphasize the fact that it's not in our control. We don't control that property. And so we certainly would love the help of the city. We'd love the help of, anybody. We're approaching all of our neighbors there, and we are having really good conversations. Our engineer is starting the design of what it would take to make an access road possible off of there. All this is going to contribute again to the cost of our development over and above the water tank. So one note to make: in the original PCD for Coral Canyon, the original zoning documents, there was no secondary access contemplated off of the ridge here. But we still had over 600 units approved on the north side of Telegraph on the Ridge, and we fall below that density that was approved 20 years ago. On the Siena Hills PCD, just as a note, in full transparency, there is a little line that's shown to come up through the Sullivan piece, and then it kind of shows that it will connect someday up on the tabletop. So we're in support of having an access off of Solus, off of that ridge line. Our hope is that we can work with the city in a rational and reasonable way to make it as minimalistic as possible for a few reasons. Number one, I think Commissioner Bullock already pointed out, when we all drive north on the freeway, we see those scars that have been there for years because of some previous property owners. I call it recreational bulldozing, just kind of hopping in a bulldozer and just having fun. And they went up the ridge, and it's an ugly scar. We would love to have an access come off the top, if at all possible, minimizing any additional scarring or any additional cutting of the slope. And so that means a little narrower width. Right now, the city minimum for a public road is a 50-foot right-of-way with a 35-foot pavement section, 17.5 on either travel lane. That's frankly super wide for some places in the country. Obviously here it fits really well, but we would love to engage in a conversation of, is there something less than that could still be a public road that could provide the fire and the evacuation and the secondary access to the city. And so I guess with that said, there's precedent in the city where a subdivision isn't required to have a secondary access until a certain number of units are C of O, certificate of occupancy. And so we'd love, as long as we can, to kick that ball down the road. There was a comment that, hey, if we don't get them at the permit stage, we're never going to get them. And I guess I just want to debunk that comment a little bit. I mean, we're certainly motivated if we can't certificate a home, and that means sell the home. I mean, we can start homes all day long, but if we're not finaling them and getting a certificate of occupancy on them, we're not getting any money, which is, obviously why we're in business. And so we're certainly motivated to get an access off of that, but we're hoping that it will be conditioned upon you know, there's the specific precedent is around 39. If our engineer was kind of helping me with that. There's been precedent that the 39th occupied unit, there's been a trigger for a secondary access. So we'd love to get started and then work on the access simultaneously. But we're open to that discussion. I think that's, unless I missed something, I'm going through my notes. I think that probably hits on a bunch of the comments that I heard and questions that I heard. We look forward to building out Coral Canyon. It's been a slow process, honestly. And we look forward to making it happen and to fulfilling the dream and the vision of what the developers and the city had 20 years ago. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I neglected to point that out. So you'll see there's 6 phases that we have outlined, and it's generally 40 per, little plus or minus.
This is Commissioner Bullock. So you mentioned that the Highland Park comes up, it's a 65-foot road.
66, yeah.
66, okay. And then you're gonna neck that road down for the 2 collector roads going up through there?
No, thanks. That's a great clarifying question. So,
because they look like they're only 50-foot roads.
Yeah, it is, except for one. And I don't know who's controlling the map, but if you can maybe zoom back out. So Highland Parkway will continue to go through Solis and will continue at its 66-foot wide right-of-way section. And I think that's where they were zooming into the section, but I just wanted to point out the road.
So it'll just go on the east side, correct?
West side.
It's on the east, on the Highland Park side, but it will transition at the neck on the mesa and go to the west. Again, I think that's obviously you've seen that we've contemplated an access. I mean, to have a 66-foot local collector be planned in a subdivision isn't just a nice way to get through the subdivision. It means that there's a contemplation of something going from here to there. I guess that kind of contradicts my point about asking for a minimalistic way off the hill, but I think there's some reason there. I think there's some room for some reasonable discussion as to, does it need to continue to be a 66? If it does, I think that is going to mean a broader, bigger, nastier scar on the slope and certainly more cost.
And also property that's owned by an applicant that's not before the commission today. And so there's, of course, limitations on what you can require of people that aren't here. That said, if the commission thinks a second access is necessary, the commission can, deny an application on the fact that it hasn't accomplished an agreement for secondary access at this point.
Sorry, this is Shill. He made a suggestion that after the 39th home, which would be one phase, basically, then that road has to be constructed. Is that correct?
That's what I suggested. Yes.
Yeah, but this is Commissioner Bullock, but we've got more than 39 homes below that if there was an accident or something that blocked off the entrance, I mean, we're doing this secondary access needs to be as much for the residents below as it does for the residents above.
Right.
No
right.
question.
You already have 270.
The issue, the real kind of this problem, if I can use that word, is certainly predating our submittal.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still the problem that you walked into. I mean,
I'm wondering, Thad, maybe what is the difference if I think the suggestion is made at some point, whether it's in writing or verbal, that road be required to be completed after a certain percentage or the first phase, if you will. What difference does it make if it's the first phase or last phase? I mean, I know it's not necessarily a specific question, it is in my mind. Meaning if you're going to let them start and get the first, is that just for the fact that they can then sell some homes to use that money to pay for it? Or is there another reason to say either yes at the beginning or yes at the end, but not in between?
So just running through my mind all the different scenarios when a secondary access requirement has been imposed. Typically when they allow it beyond 39 homes, the first phase, it's because those are the first homes being built, and there's not a lot of concern until there's actually houses built and occupied. In a scenario where there's already multiple phases on the ground, and then this one is going to just add on to that same road, drawing a line at a phase number is consistent with Commissioner Bullock's comments, which is that phase has to be added on top of everything else that's already existing on the road, because the concern from staff is safety and emergency access. And that concern would apply to the existing lots just as much as it would the newly developed ones. From the developer standpoint, I don't think there's any question, but what they prefer to be able to build and sell and capture some return income before they're required to build or accomplish all of the infrastructure that the city requires of them. And so in this situation, I think that the commission should look at the emergency and the safety concerns and leave the developer concerns. Some of the public commented, well, it's more difficult to negotiate with somebody else after you've already started. And that may or may not be true. But those aren't concerns of the public. Those would be private concerns of the developer. What the developer needs to know from the commission is what does it want to see built and when, and then the developer will need to determine whether they can work with that requirement.
And the hard part is they can't control that property that he noted down below, right? Even if he said, I'll pay for it tonight out of my pocket, well, it's not up to.
Yeah, if the commission determined we absolutely want to require a second access, that could limit the whole project if another landowner is not willing, because I doubt the commission's going to let them off any of the other ridge points. I'm sure you'd have more people here if that was the proposal.
It looks like it's a dirt road right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a bladed dirt road.
Not really. It's not really a road. That's what I mean. It's recreational bulldozing. Okay. Someone just took a dozer and made us way up and down.
So it's fairly historic. It was vehicular access at a point during my life. I've been up and down it in a vehicle.
Sorry, I'm Jason Smith. It's not a legal access.
It's not a legal road.
It never was meant for a vehicle. It actually wasn't cut as a road. It was cut as fill for the lower site. And it was used as a road. People have used it up and down, but it is not historically ever meant to have been a road by the Sullivans.
And there's a lot of history. Yeah, a lot of history there on the lower point. There's old structures and different facilities that have just tell the story of the history at that location. And that road's part of the history at that location. Right now, I'm sure that with the right type of vehicle, you could get up and down it. But I think the only access that I see is walkers or mountain bikers that seems to be on there.
See, but the other day,
and it's certainly not 66 feet wide. If you're going to require that type of road there, you're going to have a much bigger scar on the slope.
See, but looking at the parcel numbers and the ownership records, Bingham owns the one property. And I know Bingham and Sullivan are related, and then you got Levitt to the north. There's 3 parcels there, but the one parcel where the access road actually starts to go down the hill is owned by Bingham, right, which is one of the Sullivans. And then you got to go into the Sullivan property itself. Yep. And then it has to turn and come down through Sitla property.
Well, I think that would be a pretty mighty turn, but it's either there or even farther. But we'd love to get to a real road as soon as possible. No question. Yeah, exactly. So there's multiple parcels that we go through. We obviously are looking at the same thing. Yep. So, I mean, one note too, to kind of throw into this discussion. And by the way, we met with Drew earlier this week, and we really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion. I mean, it's certainly an issue, and, we need to talk through it and come to a good conclusion. Let me just throw this out there for food for thought. If it's not like that full on city accepted, let's call it 50-foot right away right now, right at the beginning, I think we like from a phased approach, even if it was a way to get fire apparatus or emergency vehicle apparatus up and down that slope as kind of a first phase. I think we are open to that discussion, which meaning, they need 20 feet. They need road base, given the amount of slope. They don't like going up above 10%. But given the slope, maybe it's not just road base, maybe there's some pavement on top. But I guess, in the near term, if we could, at least provide that emergency style egress, that would certainly be much better than swallowing the pill of a full on publicly dedicated, publicly standard right away.
So Mr. Howell's describing, you may have seen in the Bella Vista development. Bella Vista does have a secondary access to the east that was required of it. But again, it wasn't required to be publicly accessible. I believe it's locked with keys that are held by public safety. Wasn't required to be paved initially. And so that concept has happened before. Part of what I think would need to be defined by the commission is that, do you want that just to get started? Do you want that to get somewhere through, or is that all you ever think is necessary? And then the council, of course, is going to have to wrestle with the same question.
Well,
This is Commissioner Bullock, and I don't know if Drew or someone can answer this for me, but is it in the original plan to have a road come off of there and tie into Grapevine Crossing?
Not in the Coral Canyon PCD, and Drew can correct me. The Coral Canyon PCD that had approved 600 units north of Telegraph had no way off of that ridge. Now, and again, Drew, sorry, you correct me, but Siena Hills, obviously the neighboring PCD, does show it in all transparency, right? That shows that, but the Coral Canyon PCD itself did not show a way off the top.
Cut myself off. So to the brother or Mr. Segmiller's comments, then Bella Vista still, it only has 80 lots up there. And that's a big difference too. I mean, we're talking literally 500 homes.
Correct.
And that's the problem. Yeah. And you have 270 of them, that's already existing. And from a safety standpoint, I don't know. I'm really uncomfortable with it personally, to the point where I won't vote for it without having something there. And if you want, if you want to use some kind of minor road going down, you're still going to have to develop Highland Parkway all the way out to the end of your development.
But it would only be a 20-foot wide width if it was a temporary egress in phasing towards a fully publicly dedicated access at some point down in a future phase.
But when you get down off the hill, where does it go to?
No, that's still the link that we're working on. Absolutely. No question. It can't be a road to nowhere. Otherwise, why build the road?
Well, Congress does it all the time.
We try not to follow their example. This is Jason Smith with Rosenberg. He's our engineer.
Drew, can you pan out and show Highland Parkway to?
That's what Drew's plan is.
No, sorry, Highland Parkway to on Telegraph, the south side of Highland Parkway, because that's the access that you're concerned about. It's not the access on the parkway. It's not the access next to the park, because that's the only access that is a single residential.
Right, but if you start throwing more houses up on top of that, Jason, then you're just compounding the problem.
No, only at that location. Well, you have a secondary access all the way through you have, what I'm saying is your issue is 200 feet. It's not all through it's just that. Correct?
Well, yeah, but it's like a funnel.
Well, the problem starts at Telegraph. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Period. It's not,
it does.
Forget about your development. It starts there. So any home being constructed after this is in addition to that problem that starts at the bottom of the funnel.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I know. I was waiting for you to come up so we could beat up on you, buddy.
Well,
no.
But
I guess, and kind of what Mr. Sigmiller is saying, it comes down to what the city council feels, how big of a problem that is for access and safety. In my mind, that's what we're talking about tonight.
Well, in 20 years ago, they shouldn't have approved it, in all honesty. What kind of...
Well, now hold up. Now, most of you live in that area, so don't...
No, but seriously,
chances are that was discussed then.
600 houses to have one access point?
Well, no, chances are that a secondary access was discussed when the council that approved what exists today was approved. We don't that development and its discussions don't get to come back and haunt the next applicants, right? And so what was built was approved by the council at that time.
But that's kind of where I'm going is that's where I'm going with the 39 units is now you are haunting them with that because you've already approved 200 and some odd units there. And now you're saying.
Yeah, well, with your theory, what you're saying is there's one driveway and then it forks into two roads so that access can be, there is two ways as long as you get through the
That's the
driveway.
definition of a second access.
Well, it's not. It's a singular access. You're just saying that through most of the existing development, there's two routes. The commission and the council have discretion to determine whether it's in the interests of the public safety.
I agree.
Require something more than that. And when a new development comes online is usually when they get to exercise that discretion.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Really steep.
So
can I just maybe restate just to sum up, because I don't want to blow this out of proportion. We are very supportive of a secondary access off of the ridge. No question. Fire, life safety, we are number one behind that. So I wanted to be clear. I think we're kind of getting a little muddled and it's like we're not on the same page. We are on the same page. What we would propose is that there's a condition of approval of our plat that's before you tonight, similar to the water tank condition of approval, that would say something along these lines. In order for the 39th unit to receive certificate of occupancy, a temporary 20-foot wide emergency secondary egress comes off of the ridge at the Washington Black Ridge into the Sullivan piece and connects to a publicly dedicated road somewhere in Siena Hills. I know that sounds kind of loosey-goosey, but it will get us where we need to go. And then the second element is that before we start phase 2 in the development, well, I don't want to, I'll say before we start phase 6 and then we can negotiate. Before we start phase 6, that secondary access needs to morph, needs to change into a publicly accepted dedicated right-of-way in the same corridor.
So hold on. Okay. I mean, I have a comment, but I'll come back to it in a second. Commissioners, do you have any? That cleared it up. Thank you. I guess I'll ask you, or I'll mention my comment now. So for me, it's whether or not we're going to add any houses to a problem that's already there. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's what my question is do I want the city council to take this coming to them as a recommendation with my vote attached to it, that and telling them essentially they get to determine what the safety is at this point. There is a problem, period. Is that your fault? Yeah, I don't want to pin it on you because it's not your fault. What also isn't your fault is you have no ability to secure that access with 100% certainty. That's where I have a problem, is voting for something where there is no 100% certainty. If all the parties were in the room and I could get an idea of how they were leaning, yeah, I kind of get that for me personally. So it's hard for me to just say, perfect, let's go ahead and let them do it.
Part of
first phase.
Sorry for jumping in there. Just a real quick note, Chairperson. In our packet, we do have a letter from the Sullivan saying that we're collaborating. So I just wanted to clear that up. Is that a guarantee? No, but we're
and
collaborating.
I understand that, and you understand my point. That's where I'm at. So man, Jake, I told you on Zoom once it should be easier. You're bringing some.
Well, you know what? Why? There's nothing easy left in the county to develop. And all that said, this was approved again, without this being addressed. So we're doing our best. I think our proposal is fair, that we are absolutely willing to get another egress. We're just asking for some help. Commissioner Musso obviously just went through the financial elements. He thinks it's higher than whatever it is. There's an added cost even to get one stick up in the air north of Highland Park because there's no water service today. And that's another thing. Was that our fault? No, but 20 years ago, this was approved for 600 rooftops on that mesa. And there wasn't this contemplation of, will there be fire flows? Will there be, so I guess I'm kind of joking with you a little bit. The reason why you're seeing hard things from us is because, Well, not in every case. I'm not going to rely on that, but in certainly this case, it's a hard piece and it was left to the very end.
Yeah. I would like to make another comment while you're there. And this is for the commissioners as a discussion from me. What I would like to see out of Coral Canyon, out of this development, is that it looks just like what's there already. So when you drive up there, you might see a difference in color of the homes because they're newer and maybe styles have changed, but they look the same. The setbacks are the same. The trail looks the same. All the other things. I wish that it looked exactly the same. However that lands and looks on paper, that's what I'd like to see as a commissioner. And you help clear some of those things up that it sounds like for the most part, that's what you are going to do. There's not 2-story homes up there. There's not different setbacks that are going to look out of whack. It's going to look just like the others.
That's correct.
I noticed when I was up there, I don't know, I think it was 2 days ago, that at the entrance there's a couple homes that are new that are built that are different color. So I noticed right away that that's happening, and I would expect that to happen in future development. I don't know. I just will discuss amongst ourselves, I guess, in public here, but that's hard for me to give the go ahead on something that we don't know if the loophole is going to be closed with regards to the road access. That's a hard
and I think that's why it's very appropriate. I totally respect that and agree with that, Chairperson. I think that's why it's very appropriate as a condition of, because if that condition isn't fulfilled, there is no approval.
So the condition would be, well, let me make sure I understand this clearly, and this might be for Drew as well. That condition, you're still allowed to start and complete that first phase. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I said 39 homes, but that's effectively the first phase.
Roughly
the first phase. Yeah.
So that's the decision then, in my mind, that council needs to make is, are we going to allow 39 additional additions to a problem that somebody else's that you landed on?
Right.
Are we on the same page?
Yes. And then morphed into a full public access, whatever that is. And I would hope to preserve some, ability to work with Public Works and figure out what that is. Again, keeping in mind the scarring potential and all that, to actually get a full on public road off the hill.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Mr. Howell, just to clarify, your proposal was that the commission approve the temporary emergency access up through lot 39, correct?
Well,
Or
and
is
that
it
access,
that-
not the, well, that, and I think you're saying the access would be off of the hill up to that 39th unit somewhere on the southern part of the subdivision. Yeah.
Correct. So there would be an access during those 39 lots. It
Correct.
just wouldn't be
Off of the hill.
Wouldn't be
Correct.
an improved public road, but it'd be sufficient for emergencies.
No, sorry. Thanks for what I was clarifying is that temporary emergency egress would only be triggered once we got to the
At lot
39th home.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to clarify.
This
But
is
you don't even
still-
have, oh, go ahead.
Okay. I guess some of the heartburn I'm feeling is, okay, you're asking for 39 homes to be built up there, and then that road doesn't come to pass and we don't get phases 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then here we are holding the bag for 1.8 on a tank that's not going to be utilized. That's not going to get impact fees to pay for. So
That's probably something the council contemplated when I would imagine, because that zonal impact fee is a council decision. And I would imagine they probably factored those types of risks into that decision. But no, I hear your point. That's kind of the bottom falls out, right?
That's 100% reality for me, because that happened in the subdivision that I moved into. Was a developer promised something and said they'd do it, and it went 5 years. And the whole community hates everybody at this point because of that. And so that's exactly one of the fears in the back of my mind. Regardless of how valiant your efforts are to get that done, there's a possibility it still may never get done.
Well, and it's really just what it comes down to is a matter of timing, which I don't mean to be a cop out, but the zonal impact fee has already been approved. The city's already out to bid today. So that water's already under the bridge. And so if we don't get approval, then you have even a bigger issue because no one's up there developing.
But it doesn't have to be developed. Because currently there's already capacity enough the way it is. So, they can go out for bid, they can do everything they want to. It doesn't have to be built.
Understood. So, but I'm just understood. In the case that the bottom falls out, we have another great recession and we end up going bankrupt, heaven forbid, right? At some point with the zonal impact fee in place with a water tank, sometime somewhere in the future, there will be development up there, and that zonal impact fee will still be in place. And so the city will at some point recoup. It's all a matter of timing, right?
And this chicken egg scenario is the scenario for all public improvements that are funded through impact fees. There'll be a study done. The study looks at the cost of the improvements, the capital improvements, looks at a time range. And then at the end of the day, the council approves that. And those ranges aren't ever perfect. They're just trying to project as best as they can to have the infrastructure fees collected help pay for that. And so that's one of the roles that the cities can perform, is the city's gonna essentially manage that impact fee fund. We'll pay for the tank when it's ready to be put into service. It'll be paid for and put into service, and then the funds to pay for that are collected over time through the impact fee.
So what's your estimated time frame for building this out?
Yeah, great question. In a perfect world, if the market continues as it is today, which we know isn't possible, we see it not ending for at least a couple of years, but who are we, right? But let me go through the timing. So there's kind of two paths that we're treading as we speak. Let me talk about the tank first. So the tank is out to bid today. The Public Works, and Brandon, you correct me if I'm saying anything that's wrong. My understanding is bids are due the 18th of May. There's a city council meeting on the 26th of May. And my understanding is the Public Works plans to present the bids on the 26th council meeting agenda and giving a recommendation for who should be awarded the project. Then sometime in June, construction will commence. Lester and Brandon and Public Works is estimating a 5 to 6 month build time. So that puts us to November, December, and let's call it the end of the year. Our intent is to have approval from you tonight, recommendation of approval, city council on the night of the 26th as well. That's kind of when it all lines up. We get approval for preliminary plat. We've already asked Rosenberg, just because we're anxious to get started. Rosenberg is already drawing civil construction drawings, which are all the construction plans, right? For the utility locations, street plan and profiles, lot grading, and all that. And then, because after we have preliminary plat approval, we can go with a set of construction drawings to the Public Works to get a review and approval. We would love to start mass grading up there in the July timeframe.
Okay, I'm talking long term.
Okay.
How long to
So
build out?
I guess I'm not finished. So let me finish.
Okay.
So in July, we'd start mass grading. We typically budget 4 to 5 months for a phase. Okay. So that puts us to where we're January, February, ready to pull a first permit in phase 1. Okay. Let's say we do, 5 lots or 5 homes a month. That's 60 homes a year. That's about a 4-year build out.
Okay. Because the only thing, and that's if everything stayed copacetic and went just as we were going today.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Back in 2005, that was the same thing that was said to Highland, to start the first phase of Highland.
Sure, yeah.
And those first houses were built in 2006.
Yep.
And you are just finishing up. There might be even 1 or 2 lots left,
No,
but I think your last lot is just being finished up
Absolutely.
15 years
Yep.
later.
Yep. There's no question. That's the industry we live in, right?
I agree.
So I don't know how to respond to that other than I agree.
I just look at it and think, okay, are we going to have a temporary road for the next 15 years?
Oh, I see.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, am I going to have a temporary road for the next 15 years? And I'd like to say no, but we don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah, part of the history, I think, is a complement to the Coral Canyon project, which is a significant recession occurred, and the city council still got built in the first phase of Highland what they were told would be built, back in 05 and 06. It took time, but eventually what got built is what was promised to be built. And what you get to wrestle with today is what needs to be built at this time for this application.
Who gets my resignation? You? This is a tough one. I appreciate all the public comments. Thanks. I appreciate all the public comments that were made, that were submitted. It gives us a lot to think about, obviously. Drake, thank you. Drew, you've been listening for a little bit. You're probably still on mute, so hit that button. But do you have any thing you'd like to add or advice or counsel for us? Because we take that from you. I take it from you pretty significantly in the past, and I'd like to do it again tonight.
I appreciate that. You know, I've known about this project, you know, or contemplated it for many years, actually, even before they even brought it, just wondering, you know, I've always worried about the Highland Park area as it is, trying to get down off the backside of that. You know, we're not going to get there without something moving forward. Does that make sense? And if we just stay status quo, we're not going to get that at all. I would really, you know, I really want to see a road come off of that. I think everybody up there does. But if we don't do anything right now, we're not going to get that. So I don't mind the stages part of it, because even at that 39th, if I can have at least a road that everybody can drive up and down, because if I can get a fire truck up and down it, I can get anybody else up and down it. And we do have people that are looking at the piece down below. Just to let you know, I'm not saying going to give you any names or anything, of maybe coming in for a general plan amendment here in the next little while. And that's good news, I think, for Coral Canyon, Coal West, us, the Sullivan selling it. So that hopefully we'll be seeing that within the next month or two. It's just an application for a general plan amendment. That just tells me things are moving forward down there, and roads will be built even closer and closer. So for what that's worth, that's my 2 cents and my peeled back onion for you.
So you're leaning to being fairly confident that the road situation between the different owners will come to a compromise sooner than later?
More so than in my 15 years at this point, probably. Because I know I've felt a little angst maybe with the person, but I've had 3 or 4 meetings with them already. I know they've met with Coal West. I know they've met with our Public Works, you know, looking at this piece very, very, very seriously down below.
Is there any chance that Chief Evans is on the phone tonight?
I can see if his name's there, or he may pipe up real quick, but.
Chief Evans is out of town.
Oh, that's right. He's on vacation.
Is there any chance that somebody knows his thoughts enough that they would speak for him, or no?
No, we've all learned not to.
He would speak to the city council when they consider the same issues that you're looking at tonight.
Okay.
This Commissioner Bullock, how do we guarantee that there's a road in there? I know, Drew, you're saying that you're very confident that there'll be a road in here, but you know, deals go bad. How do we ensure that this road, that we did have say a 20-foot easement for fire and rescue before they started phase 1, and then once they got through phase 4, however we wanted to decide that, but how do we do it beforehand? So, because they're saying they're in talks, but I mean, it's just talks. What do we do there?
No, that's a great question, and that's the golden question. You know, it's almost like we're almost being asked to invest in 39 homes. I don't know how else to look at it. You know, or I don't want to say gamble on 39 homes. I think they're asking us to invest in 39 homes to get that 20-foot secondary, at least, you know, graded, road base, compacted travel lane, you know, to get off the back of that hill. And then you're going to invest in 39 more to get whatever the conditions are that, you know, you and the city council come up with on those phases, I guess, each process of the way. Maybe that's the hard question here. It really is.
And what I hear Drew saying is, in a scenario where the secondary access involves a second property owner that's not the applicant, the parties are going to be much more motivated to reach an agreement if the commission and council approve something, vest them with some rights, because historically, as we've seen, there's not been any, you know, progress there, but that's partly because the landowners don't have any progress to work towards. And so what I think Drew's saying is, if you were to give them some reason to go up in there and get a plat approved with conditions and to make progress with conditions, the fact that they want to get in there and pursue that approved conditional work should motivate them to not want to stop at that point, to go reach an agreement. And the commission has as much insight on how to negotiate and reach agreements with other property owners as any of the staff do. And this is a unique challenge. Most of the time when the secondary access is required, it's on the same property as the applicant. And so the applicant can control, where it goes and how it deals with the property. And this one does not have that element.
You're saying it would be basically advantageous for the other property owners to make a deal with Coal West so that theirs would get going faster and they would already have it something.
Well, we've got a unique thing. You've got other property owners on top of the mesa. You got Coal West, and then you've got people at the bottom of the mesa that need to also be in agreement on a road. And so that's the wrinkle there, is the other ones on top of the mesa surely should have a similar motivation as Coal West, which is they need to get off somehow.
Because they'll be using the same access coming in off of Highland Park.
And if the commission's worried about that access now, surely they'll be worried about that access when some other applicant on the mesa shows up.
And they'll be using, because that's going to be a collector road to run down for those people to get on to 13, to get on the I-15. That's how I would do it.
Yep.
Well, anybody who live in this new subdivision,
right,
coming up that road, that's going to be their primary road, I would think.
Well,
because you're cutting off going all the way around.
Or Iron Man's going to be in town again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Who wants to deal with that?
The problem I see is that I would feel a lot more comfortable if I had a development agreement in front of me already, that the people have signed and said, okay, yeah, well, but you guys are, it's pie in the sky right at the moment for you, once that development agreement between you and not necessarily the Sullivans or whomever is buying that property is there, then I would say, okay, I can feel comfortable saying, okay, yeah, let's do this 20-foot whatever. But right now, there's no way that we can do this.
If I could respond to that,
Yeah.
Commissioner Musso, I guess what I'm saying is whether we have that or not, and we're certainly obviously doing everything, we're very motivated, as Mr. Sigmiller said, we're very motivated. That's why we're discussing this and trying to negotiate and trying to get to there. But ultimately, if it doesn't happen, then we don't get beyond that 39 unit count anyway. And so we're motivated. Drew has already asked for a development agreement, and we certainly are supportive of that. He was specifically mentioning with the city of Washington, and that's something that we're very, supportive of. There is already a development agreement between Coral Canyon, us, and the city dated, 1999 when the PCD was approved.
Right,
but we can certainly add to it. I understand. And that's what we're pursuing. We're pursuing.
So I think what we have here is premature. You guys coming in literally is premature. Putting this before us tonight is premature for us to even literally vote on it.
I hear what you're saying, but I think what Mr. Segmiller said is also a very reasonable perspective, is that our motivation goes from here to here when we actually have some support of the city. We're proposing a city road coming off of the thing, again, that we don't control, but we're kind of the impetus of, right? We need some help. We need a shot in the arm so that we can move forward with some energy and with some excitement to get started on developing the hill.
Well,
that's all we're asking for.
The shot in the arm is that, okay, if you come back and you have that development agreement, then we'll say yes. I guess that's the shot in the arm. But for us to sit there and give you the ability to go ahead and develop anything right now, in my opinion, is premature. Now, I'm speaking for myself.
Right. I understand.
Okay. And I don't know about the rest of the council, but it just seems to me, until you have that development agreement with whomever is purchasing that property and Sitla, because you're going to have to go through Sitla's stuff, then, like I said, I can't see it happening, because all we're doing is adding to a problem that's already there. So, and I'll bow out.
I agree. I think we need to have, this is Commissioner Bullock, we need to have, our roads planned so that we don't come across this issue. They didn't have the other one coming off, but now's the time to fix it. So we fix this and get an agreement with whoever that they will be able to put this road through there. whether it's just a traffic or a fire road for right now, for the first phase or two, let's at least get that part of it done so that there's a standard there so that we know that this road's going to go there eventually and we don't have to deal with it.
So back to the motivation theory, if the commission wanted to motivate them to do that more quickly, you would say, we'll approve your offer of a 20-foot emergency road, but it needs to be in place by lot 1, right? You could just change the time frame at which you apply it. I'm not saying that's what they've requested. I'm just saying that that's how, if you feel like that's what's necessary, that's how you motivate that result. And again, if they're not able to accomplish that with the other landowners, lot 1 and the grading probably doesn't ever happen, right? And so the commission's just got to decide. You've heard what the applicant requested and what they suggest. You've got to decide what it is you think public safety and the citizens of Washington City need.
Well, and just to submit one more thing in the spirit of, offering something less, we talked about the precedent of the 39. But I mean, even if the commission and the council would allow us before that secondary emergency road is required, allow us to get a permit on our community center and 5 of those lots. Allow us to start. I mean, I'm throwing that out there. Take it from 39 down to 5. So 5 plus the community center, and help us with the motivation and the energy to move ahead.
I still, excuse me, this Commissioner Bullock, I still want to see an agreement myself so that they have access to do that, because right now you don't have access permission to put that road in, correct? Is what I'm hearing. Yeah, there's no formal access, nothing's in writing. So I say once you get that, then we move to all right, you can have a 20-foot one by 5 lots, but the access needs to be there, in my opinion.
So is that access?
Isn't that sorry, just to submit, isn't that the purpose of a condition of approval? Or are you saying you're not even comfortable with the condition if there's not already something in writing between us and our neighbor? So you're not comfortable conditioning that?
No, like what I said, I think you're premature coming here before us tonight without having your ducks in a row, at least with having an agreement to get that backside road, because you knew that was going to be a problem. You knew that was going to be an issue, that backside road, before we even start talking tonight.
With all due respect, we knew it was an issue, but an issue that we could potentially resolve with a condition. And so that's what we knew coming into the evening. Otherwise, we probably would have done a little bit more in our discussions with our neighbor to say, hey, neighbor, you know what? The city's they're not budging until there's an actual agreement between us and you. Otherwise, we would have probably had that discussion.
But so my question, sorry, this is Commissioner Bullock. My question is like you said, you'll start mass grading. And if we say 4 lots, you're saying you'll put 4 homes built, right? For
whatever our condition is.
Right. But what I'm saying though is we just want to see that you actually have writing in it saying that they're going to give it to you, because they don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, absolutely
they don't have
not.
to.
They don't have to.
So, I mean, how do we know that? I mean, they're going to need it eventually because they'll want to get to their access. But
I guess what I'm saying is from that 39 that we kind of talked about down to 5 is a lot less risk if they say no to us.
But you're still going to do a mass grading up there. You're still going to grade. You're still going to do a mass grading.
But that would be a calculated risk that we would have to make as a business owner to expend all that money if we can't ever make good on it.
Right. I guess
I like 5 a lot better than 39, and I hate 5 more than 0. So, I understand exactly. One of the things that was brought up is the word negotiation with this body. I think you were negotiating with the wrong body. I mean, all we can do is tell city council, this is the issues that we see with this, whether it's we send it through for approval or denial. I doubt it's going to be unanimous one way or the other. And so it's the city is going to decide how important that access point is. Obviously, it's a problem. It's a problem where I could absolutely say, nope, not going to vote for it. But I could also see the other way going, you know what? I understand. Let's let them get started. You've talked about the discussions tonight have been brought up about what it's going to look like up there. I'm not opening this up to a public opinion or a comment section again, but I think that settles a lot of the comments that I read, what it's going to look like. It's going to look like Coral Canyon up on the ridge. It's not going to be any different. I even still see people, whatever, disagreeing with it, but that's what we're seeing from what we're hearing from you, what the city will hold you to. We could go for hours and talk about this. That's the hard part is, and that's why you keep coming up. And I like it because we need to make sure that you as a developer are getting what's best for the community, and you happen to be a piece of it. In Coral Canyon, I'm willing to bet every person in here, look me up in 5 years when this is all built out, the value of their home went up because of it. So it's not that we're afraid of this and we're afraid of that. Yes, there's going to be traffic for construction. I live in a development where I tried to shut down a subdivision that drives right past my house. I had a nail in my tire the other day, and it never even thought to me that it came from construction until tonight. And I was like, oh, that's why I had a nail in my tire. I get it. It's the vehicles. They've ruined my road. All the different things that everybody has said. I'm living it. I welcome the community that's being built. It's improving the value of my home. I just got to deal with it. What you're going to build, I think, is a great product. Coral Canyon's a great product. We've talked about it. So the frustration for me is I could see a motion going either way, and I could see myself agreeing with it either way because the city council is going to make that decision. That's what's hard for me, guys, because I understand it completely. In business, I would never agree to something if it wasn't in paper, in writing in front of me, where I'm like, perfect, they got it.
And let me make my point. I am not opposed to the development. I think the product that you have is going to be fine. I think that access is a major issue, but as far as the way the layout and everything, it looks just like the lower half, and it's going to be a good product. There's no question in my mind, and it'll sell, but it needs to have that.
Then I think we should figure out how we can curb that risk and go send to city council something that curbs the risk of that access if it never happens. And we've seen it go down to 5 houses. And I think the community centers, whatever, something. I mean, if we screw this up somehow, some way, and it adds 5 houses to the mix, I think everybody's going to be okay. If they're not, then we have bigger problems. But I mean, it is a problem. It's not going to be a problem when we can get this built out up there. That's the way I look at it. And we've got to start somewhere. So let's curb the risk that we have, send it to city council in some sort of a recommendation, or however we want to phrase it, or denial, or whatever it's going to be, but it's got to curb that risk somehow.
Yeah, and ultimately the city council is going to be the one that makes the decision that binds the applicant. And I know the city council really appreciates having content from the commission. So the type of discussion and wrestling you've done tonight, I think the council really appreciates that, because that flows into their process and their decision. And so I think if the commission could pass a motion one way or the other, that also if there's conditions that this commission thinks are necessary, that it would attach those, so that when the council looks at it, they go back and review the history and try and understand why those conditions are attached as they are from this body. I think that's the best service you can do to the council and the citizens, is to give them a motion, whether it's up or down, and give them conditions that this body thinks are necessary to approve this project or deny.
So somehow I can't make a motion. You guys are gonna have to figure out how to make a motion. We can discuss it and try to help each other come up with that. I'm suggesting that we come up with a motion for approval that curbs the risk as much as we can, that allows them to get started, but then stops it in its tracks if it doesn't allow it, if they don't get the things necessary.
The offer of 5 lots and a community center, the community center is not going to be any small cost. It's going to be a fairly significant investment. And if they don't get legal access beyond that, it's really just going to be for 5 lots. So that was an interesting offer. The commission might mull that over a little bit more. Again, the commission could say approve with a condition that there's access at lot 1, and the council could still come back and say, we'll approve with access at lot 5 in the community center, right? And so this commission, I think, shouldn't spend all night coming up with their opinion, but you should consolidate on what this commission thinks is really necessary for an approval of this proposal.
All right, gentlemen, I'll sit back and listen. How we want to formulate that.
I'll make a motion, and I would make a motion. I would recommend that us as a planning commission forward this to the city council for preliminary plat for the Solace at Coral Canyon subdivision to, based on their conditions, plus I would add a condition that the emergency road will be able to have access with construction vehicles and emergency vehicles by the time they do their community center, and I'll go along with 5 homes.
Would the 5 homes serve as models? Is that, and I think 5 came from your direction. Is that something that we're random number? I know you mentioned the model is being built, and I saw that as well on the other side.
Yeah, so I guess the direct answer is they are not our model complex that we've planned.
Okay.
Our model complex that we've planned is on the other side of the community center.
Yeah, that's where the 5 lots would be.
And I guess maybe I should have been a little more clear. I mean, what we have in asphalt today, improved public road, is here. This is all in.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's limit that, because if all else fails and this thing falls flat on its face, those homes that are built are already built on a road that's there, and it just added 5 additional homes to the community. It wouldn't even look like it added to it. It's just right across the street from that park.
Correct.
Right?
And like I say, technically speaking, I'm all about full transparency. I know. Anyway, there's 3.5 per hour plan that would fit in that existing paved area. So it would be 1.5 more if we could get that.
So, but you're talking that your model is going to be on the opposite side. It's going to be, just took it down.
Our intent for our model complex would be on the west side of the community center. But what would allow us to do would allow us to start pre-selling, ginning up interest. Wow, you guys, we are moving to Solace.
So
if we don't have anything, we don't have that.
Right. And you were talking about lots 40 or 36 to 40 basically is where your models are going to go.
Yes.
See, I wouldn't be even so much opposed to it if they want to do the community center, those 3 lots plus then the model homes. Is what you were saying, Doug.
Yeah.
How many homes would that be?
fine.
It'd be 8.
8?
I think we have plans for 3 or 4. I don't know if you can add one more, but I think we may have 4 model homes.
Right. So lots.
So that would be 5 and the 4, 9.
Yeah, you'd be building out from lot 37 to 40 for your models.
Oh, 10
and then 3 lots, 15, 16, and 17.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What? Hey, we're still not answering that.
Right.
We're still not answering.
15, 16, and 17.
So maybe if that's what the commission wants to do, you'd specify which lot numbers.
Yeah, we could do that.
But that's still not answering the fire access road.
Well, no, it's just, we just say until once these lots are done, that road has to be in.
Yep.
They have to have a development agreement, plus they have to have the other part before they can keep.
So,
going.
so you're saying more than what I was saying. You're saying we'll give them those 8 lots or whatever it is
Right now.
And then by the time they're done, they have to have the road in.
Road is
They at least have to have that emergency road done.
Emergency road done. Like I was saying, I wanted an agreement before this ever started, just saying that they have the right to do that, and then it could go to however many homes. That's what I was.
And then it would be finished by phase 1. I think was ultimately what they were trying to do in the first place.
Whatever. I don't care. We just need to make sure there's some sort of that it is agreed to go. They have right to go down there.
Well, isn't that what I said?
So yeah, if what you're saying, I like that too, because
we're gonna have the 8 lots, the community center.
Let's maybe clarify with Commissioner Schill. Was your motion that you would require the access for emergency services and construction to begin or after the completion of community center plus lots?
I'm saying it has to be after that 8 homes, then it has to be completed before they start number 9.
Okay. And I think what Commissioner Bullock is saying is you were wanting it to be in at lot 1.
I just wanted an agreement before we went any further. But what they're saying is they're only giving them 8 lots and then they want it all the way done.
Yeah, but given the motivation to really
Right.
go.
So yeah, you got 8 lots and then you're going to want to finish it is what you're saying. So I'm okay with that.
So then our risk is 8 lots and we have the road done
And a community center.
and a community center. That
We might need to clarify your motion. I thought your motion was emergency services and construction
I
access.
did say emergency services and construction vehicles. Now, I don't know what that's going to require for a construction vehicle to get up there with a load of lumber.
It's going to need to be graded some, and probably you're going to have gravel or
But
road
to
base
get a
or
fire
something.
truck up there, you're gonna have that same thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I just want to make sure the clarity is full public access or after lot 8, or is the motion for limited emergency
I'd
access
say
and
limited.
construction?
I would say limited.
And then I think to Commissioner Bullock's question is, would there be a condition as to when full public access would also be required?
I think that would be beginning of phase 2, probably in my eyes.
No, because then
And-
you'd end up with a dirt road up there for 10 years.
We're working on the motion that was started, I think, because we're just trying to clarify your motion at this point. You can withdraw your motion, you can restate it and put it to a vote. But I was just wanting to clarify so that your motion was understood in the
know.
record.
why don't you withdraw your motion and let's start over? Just
Start-
withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Let's get it
I'll
clear
withdraw.
what we're gonna say and put on paper and then we'll redo it. I don't know how you withdraw a motion, Kathy, but I've actually never seen it in 3 years.
It wasn't seconded, so I think just stating on the record, it's
Died.
withdrawn.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dead. Okay. So then let's make sure you got it right. If you're gonna make the motion, let's make sure you have it
Okay.
clear and concise. Something that we're gonna need to take into consideration as well is if there's a community center that's built and worst case scenario, 8 homes are constructed and nothing after, there's got to be something done with that community center that it's not only for 8 people for the next 10 years. I don't know how, but that just seems kind of silly if that would happen to be the case. Yeah.
So do we want to say the community center has to be completely finished?
Eight.
So they have to have at least the building up.
I wouldn't care about the community. I wouldn't care about the community
I don't-
center.
Yeah, yeah, I don't,
But what I'm worried about though is, I don't know, I just see it all being graded and nothing getting done on the secondary access. Once we tell them go, I think it's go.
I think the public interest is the secondary access. I think that's really where you should focus. And so if you want to tie in details like when grading or when the community center is completed, I think really your concern is when should a secondary access be required?
What if we flip the community center and make that the secondary access and the community center be finished by the end of the first phase?
I personally don't think the community center has to be built right away.
I looked at that as just something they're going to attract buyers.
Right.
If that's
But
finished,
that's
that's
not our
gonna-
job to attract buyers. I mean, our job is to get a public safety access on there and make sure that the zoning's right.
Right. So I don't mind if you just say the 8 lots, and then if they want to build the community center, that's fine. That's their prerogative, but we need to have an agreement and the road in by the time they start that 9th lot. Personally,
I'm comfortable with that. That puts the road more important than the community center.
Sure it does.
And so it's the road be completed by the time the 9th lot is started. And whether or not they do the community center, I don't really, I guess. It's got to be finished by the end of the first phase though. Consistent with what we've done in the past. Public access, yeah. No, by end of, well, see,
First phase, 39 lots.
No.
no, we're going back to
No,
the
by-
same thing.
By the end of the, before they
Into
start
the
the
9.
ninth lot.
Emergency
Into the-
access after 8. They have to have emergency access on the 9th lot
We're saying emergency and public.
and public after 39.
Yes, because that's what the public has expressed as a big concern, is that access. So our risk is 9 lots. And then the public access road is finished on the downside. Mhm.
Public access road.
Yes.
Not on the 39th. You keep
No,
saying
no,
the
on the
39th,
ninth, on the
On
ninth.
the 9th, not you.
Just the
She'll
emergency
keep saying
access.
30.
No,
No.
full access.
Well, I think he's just saying what he sees. So yeah, you're seeing it differently.
Are we saying the same thing differently?
No, you're saying different things,
We're saying two different.
two different things.
You want it after the 39th lot, after phase 1 is done.
After 39.
And we want full access after 9.
Yeah, that's what you're missing.
Well, the good thing is city council gets to decide how important that public access is, right? That's what I'm saying, is we have to put something to them and they can decide. And it curbs our risk if we go with the most stringent, which would be nine lots and then full public access before the 10th one is started. That's exactly right. They're gonna do what they need to do.
That's right.
So that's why, like, let's curb another hour of this and say, all right, here,
Right,
here's what
let's
we
give them
think.
something to chew on. Okay.
So in doing that, I would be more stringent than less stringent and let them decide how important that access is.
Yeah, what the applicant needs is you to advance it on, right?
Right.
And again, what the council needs is a record of all of the deliberations you've done so that they can chew on those and then chew on their own feelings.
Well, the thing is, really quick, the reason that the clubhouse or whatever you want to call it is important to me for them is we want this to succeed. We're not trying to fail them on this. We want this to succeed. And in order for them to gain interest in their product, that's something that if they want to build that at their own discretion in the 1 to 9, then they can. That's going to attract people. Again, we want this to succeed. So if the front entrance of it is built out with 9 homes and a clubhouse, it would get more attention to get more people up there. That's why I'm saying.
But the clubhouse, I don't want to make.
But that's up to them. That's give or take if they
I'm not
want to
gonna
do
make
that.
contingent.
No.
Yeah, and the clubhouse has less influence on daily trips
Yes.
than houses built does, right? And so the clubhouse is an interesting one because really, let's say that they built the clubhouse based on a condition that's approved, and then the bottom falls out and the market goes sour. The developer is the controlling party of the association. They're paying to maintain all of that for as long as it takes for the market to get back, right? And so the clubhouse, I think it's interesting. It was part of their compromise recommendation, but this commission needs to just decide what you think is necessary to approve a motion.
Okay. So this is Commissioner Musso, and I make the following recommendation to City Council that
Make a motion.
that the preliminary plat approval for Solace at Coral Canyon subdivision located approximately Highland Parkway and 1500 North, that approval is for 8 lots in phase 1, specifically lots 1 through 3, plus lots 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, which would be used as potential model homes.
I don't think it's lots 1 through 3. Yeah,
Those were the ones that are on the,
if you look right here.
I'm sorry, my bad. So lots 15, 16, and 17, and then lots 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you want 4?
Because the road's there, 22.
You had 3.5.
Well, what he said is 3.5 already have asphalt. He was saying that
So
if you gave him 5,
I
you'd
could
be-
care less from that standpoint. Okay, so we'll give you 14. Let me go back. Okay, I can go back and amend the lot numbers. So 14, 15, 16, and 17. And I'll give you 9. Okay, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. So that gives you 5 lots for model homes and 4 lots that are against the Horizon Drive that can be developed. At the beginning of lot number 10, construction of lot number 10, an access road has to be through the project. An emergency, a secondary access road has to be through the project and down Grapevine Pass Hill. And a development agreement has to be signed, and it has to be a public access road. So down through the development and down the Grapevine Hill.
Okay, I have a,
No, not lot 10 not quote unquote lot 10. Yes, I'm talking about the 10th building lot, not quote unquote lot number 10. Thank you for the clarification, ma'am.
Kathy, is that motion clear?
It's clear as mud.
I'll just maybe restate it for you. The motion from Commissioner Musso is the plat as presented tonight would be recommended for approval with all of the conditions on the briefing document from staff and a specific condition regarding secondary access that would require full public access, a full public secondary access by the time the 10th lot is presented for development.
See, that's why he's an attorney and I can't speak.
Well, no, that's why I don't have to make tough decisions. I just get to summarize tough conversations.
I appreciate that and exactly what.
The only thing I would clarify, Commissioner Musso, is between lots 1 and 9, what does your motion contemplate? That it's a temporary, that it requires temporary emergency access, or does it not require any emergency access until lot 10?
No emergency access until the lot 10.
Okay. And so you're not doing anything with temporary access. You're just saying by lot 10, full access is necessary.
I second that.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Musso. I've got a second by Commissioner Shield. Individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Fitzampu.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm Hanson. I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion passes unanimously. That concludes item number 7B. And we will pass that to City Council with a recommendation for approval based on the findings and the conditions that were added. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess for people to leave that are not staying for the next item. And we will reconvene in 5 minutes on item 8A of the conditional use permit.
Did you have something else to say?
But I'm glad you're here.
But I don't think any of those lots are going to my trade center. The roads. I agree with you. That is something. So that's the wall, support walls. And then the two, right, all the same. I mean, like someone said, so there's a couple. So this is a kind of. One of the reasons we don't so nice to meet you. I used to work on these are
It's not his thing though. He says he was gonna to the guy that does. He knows a guy.
Somebody's gonna die and we're gonna come back and say, well, you know, we talked to somebody. I don't know. They don't look inside, you're right.
Well, I did pass.
What?
For lease on that guy.
He knows I'm doing short.
I want to listen to everything because you guys deserve it. You've earned it.
No, it's just all about, I mean, we were fine with the houses and we want it built.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow. No, you were eloquent. How you stated it. I mean. didn't have to
We
go
just want it to look like everything else.
Well,
We want it single
I made the
floor,
mistake
and
last
that's
time
fine.
of not going up.
But he's right,
And we
because
had a lot of people that got off
The
on
other-
tangents about
that other meeting.
talking about homeowner
Area 7
issues, which are
with the
nothing
99
to do with this.
It got mixed. So the county secretary asked us to get in.
It's from the donut shop.
They're just putting in sprinklers.
It's fascinating.
So she's looking around. They should put sprinklers in all the houses. I know. I know.
I mean, you got already 270 homes up there with one access point. You know, we're sitting there on the south side.
Okay, Drew and Kathy, are you back at your positions?
Yeah, let me get my shoes back on and I'll be ready to go.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
36 comments written here.
We'll go ahead and reconvene, and I thoroughly apologize, gentlemen in the back. We kind of saw this coming, and boy, terrible. But we'll go ahead and look at item number 8A. This was tabled from April 21st. It's considering approving of a conditional use permit, C-21-03 for a commercial building, Donutsville, located approximately 300 East Telegraph. The applicant, and I'll screw this up again, is Channing Tatch. Staff will turn the time over to you for a report.
This item was tabled from April 21st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting to give the applicant time to review the building elevations along with site access. The applicant has revised the proposal, which includes a right-in only access off of Telegraph and a right out only onto 300 East. Furthermore, the lobby and the front doors are now seen from Telegraph with a 5-foot 7-inch sidewalk between the front doors and drive-through. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to develop 0.62 acres located at the southwest corner of 300 East Telegraph. The applicant is proposing 2 commercial pads, one of which will house Donutsville and the other being disclosed as future use. The applicant is proposing 18 parking stalls for both buildings, 5 for Donutsville and 13 for the future use. This parking meets city standards. The zoning designation for this particular location is C2. The surrounding zoning is C2 to the north, mobile home to the east, and C2 to the west and south. The proposed building is under the 5,000 square foot requirement of needing a conditional use permit, but due to its location, it is required to obtain a conditional use permit. Staff did notice the north end of the building, which faces Telegraph, is going to be all stucco, as proposed, and has concerns that it needed to be broken up by adding stone. And I apologize, that's a typo. I did not update that report since this was revised. Staff also discussed the possibilities of placing a fence between the property to the south, which is a residential home, and a welding shop to the rear of the home. Staff concluded this fence may be beneficial. However, the city code does not require a fence due to both properties being zoned CD2. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve conditional use C-21-03, allowing for Donutsville and a future commercial use building located at 300 East Telegraph as shown in the exhibits, with the findings and conditioned as outlined below. Condition number 1 states any site improvements shall meet the requirements and city state adopted codes. Condition 2, the development of the site shall comply with the exhibits provided in this application. Condition 3, development of the site shall also comply with the recommendation of a geotechnical study and drainage study. Improvements for drainage and detention shall be approved by the Public Works Department prior to the issue of building permit. Condition 4, the applicant will submit a traffic impact study for review and approval by the Public Works Department. The city access management plan will be adhered to in traffic design of the project. Condition 5, the parking will be adhered to as presented in the exhibits of this application. Condition 6, any roof mounted equipment will be screened from view. Condition 7, a detailed landscaping plan will be submitted for review and approval prior to any landscaping being installed throughout the project. Condition 8, all lighting of the project development will be directed inward to the site. Condition 9, all signage will be in accordance with the adopted sign regulations of the city. And lastly, condition 10, dumpster screening shall blend in with the surrounding developments. Details for this item shall be submitted for review and approval prior to the issuance of associated required permits. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
All right, commissioners, I'll open it up for questions for staff.
So Eldon, in the parking lot, or not in the parking lot, but in the driveway, there's something that looks like a stoplight. You know, there's rectangle box with 3 circles in it. What's that? I'm not seeing the code.
Could be a interceptor.
Right there in front of the building. Is that what you're talking about?
Grease
That's a
interceptor.
grease interceptor for on the sewer line.
Okay.
So are we changing elevations so that Telegraph sees it?
Front.
Okay. And are we getting another access on Telegraph?
Right in only off of Telegraph, and then a right out only off of 300 East. So
That's better.
Correct. The applicant did swap the building, pretty much did a 180 with it. Stucco will be facing Mike's welding shop. And then the windows, front doors, everything is proposed towards Telegraph.
Good call.
Can you come in left on 300 East?
no.
So the only entrance is from Telegraph?
Right.
Okay. So the telephone pole that's there on the exit, is that something that stays there or is that something that moves? Because it's kind of right in the, perfect. It's, don't forget to state your name by the way. It's right in the middle of what I would say the exit would be.
Dallas
Yeah.
Buckner, Coast Civil Engineering. Yeah, so we had talked about it a little bit. So there's a little keynote there, 14. We've got it about 3.5 feet off of the curb. And then we've also placed some bollards right there. And then as a part of taking the right in off Telegraph and the right out, we've angled that curb to not allow folks to turn right in there. But the plan is to keep that telephone pole in place. We do have the 24-foot, which was for 2-way, but now we have signage indicating just right out on Telegraph only, but we do have enough area there. And then also for Mike's welding, I know one of his concerns with doing a joint access was the potential of people blocking his driveway. I think that having an out only there helps as far as having people backed up trying to turn in. So
You won't have a ride in on Third East, huh?
No.
correct. Yep. So it's a right in on Telegraph. So the only entrance is Telegraph, and the only exit is 300. But that also helps with the from our last meeting as far as bringing trucks in there. And that's
So how will that be? How are you going to prevent it coming from Third East?
That's
So-
where we've angled the curb so that you have a pretty sharp turn to make it in there. And then we also have signage with the striping shown on there is that right out.
Okay, and we all know that everybody reads signs.
Yep. That's why we put them
I
up.
mean, they did that same kind of thing on the Maverick on River Road and River in St. George, where they come out right there. You can't turn left and you can't turn right.
They have those cone things out there too.
Well, they also have a big median there where, I mean, yeah, if you're going to go over it, you're going to go over it. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going to be a jerk, you're going to be a jerk. So, I mean, you can't stop people.
I think this flows a lot better than what we saw last time.
I do too.
From what we talked about. One of the things I was looking the other day at different buildings on Telegraph, and there's something I saw that I'd really like to see incorporated here. And I think it's very small. It's really aesthetics, but at the back of the building that faces Mike's Welding, the Taco Bell that was built on Telegraph, they have a wall that's pretty much all stucco. There's some stone at the bottom, but they have 3 really nice light fixtures on there, which I thought were awesome.
Okay.
And instead of seeing that whole wall stucco, if you could do something like those light fixtures, it's just for aesthetics. I don't think that the light goes straight down. It would help because it's in between those parking spaces in the building. So at night it lights that up a little bit. I just thought it was nice. When I was thinking about this and I saw this project, I thought, 3 lights on the building, no big deal. I don't
Sure. Yeah, you're talking about just attached to, yeah.
Go take a look. They're like the bell lights. That,
Yep. I know what you're talking about for sure.
When you look at Taco Bell, you understand.
And then we're going to have to make the assumption that the second building is not going to have any kind of drive-through at all.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, the plan is to have it be some kind, but yeah, that, and I don't know the process for Washington City. I don't know if that building, will that trigger a conditional use permit for that one as well?
So yeah, that might be something interesting to clarify. The second building, it's been mentioned as part of the application tonight, but when it needs to get constructed, it'll need to come back to the commission for the same process that you're undergoing tonight. You'll look at parking that's been allocated and again, the application mentions some of the parking which is allocated for that building, but it'll look at all of that again at the application for the second building.
And based on our site constraints, I mean, really, we'd have to look at putting a building in there and back our way in based on parking calcs to make it work.
Yep.
Yeah, depend on the business that's going into it too.
Yeah, and how much floor area and also those
Yeah.
parking calcs.
Franchise?
Is the Donutsville a franchise? Is Donutsville a franchise?
No.
No.
If I was to come in and park at this Commissioner Hanson on the southern parking lot by Mike's Welding or whatever that direction, and walk to the front of the building as I'm walking in between the 2 buildings, I'm assuming that's some sort of a paved sidewalk type of a thing. Are there windows on Donutsville on the left-hand side there? Yeah, there is. It's probably answered in some other, but I'm just thinking this as logic as I'm walking to the front, that corridor right there between the buildings. How safe is that going to be, I guess? Is there any reason to believe that's an issue if there's not?
So you can see there's two on the corner. So
Yeah,
that middle elevation on the left side. So there are returning ones, and then there's also the exit out of the kitchen as the door. Yeah.
It might be a good idea to put some 1 or 2 light fixtures in between those buildings too, but
Please look at those on Taco Bell.
Sure.
I thought it was great because I was trying to look for a building that had a lot of no windows and a lot of stucco or whatever, and how people were dressing it up. And I saw that and I was like, that's perfect for the donut building that shows up.
Much better than the first time.
Good. Glad you like it.
I'll just compliment the applicant. The staff meeting that occurred to discuss these issues was also long. And so the applicants, committed and shown up and participated. And what's been proposed tonight was the result of a good, long, hard discussion about just the practicalities of this location and all the other issues that the commission identified at the last meeting.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it succeed. It's just a super tricky lot. There's other questions I'll bring up at another time about other parcels, not this one, but yeah.
So Brandon, there's obviously enough room coming in off of Telegraph to make that work. And it's not going to affect the deceleration lane or.
So I will clarify, this proposal would be of invariance to our access management plan. The access management plan requires distancing that's greater than this, but this would be the proposed variance that would most satisfy the staff departments of this city.
So it doesn't affect other parcels then. This is specific to this corner.
Correct.
We're not setting the precedence.
Well, any decision could be argued to be precedential, but this one is looking at this proposal, which is these two buildings and this parcel. And so precedent is difficult to expand beyond a situation where there's so many facts at hand that aren't going to be seen elsewhere.
And part of our staff discussion also was, because originally we had proposed just a right in, right out only on 300. And in the staff discussion, staff came to the recommendation that they could live with the variance on Telegraph if we eliminated the right in off of 300. And so that's how we've revised it, is to just have the one in, one out only.
And the assumption or the conclusion was essentially lefts onto 300 from the initial driveway would be more impactful than rights off of Telegraph. And so this is kind of the compromise: bring a right off of Telegraph and then limit lefts onto 300.
Yeah.
And that way you could flow traffic in and out, but also avoid the most harmful maneuvers that would be a real impact. Because at Telegraph heading north, it's a nightmare already. And to eliminate the ability of people to turn left there is probably our greatest ask at this point.
I think it's the best possible situation for that corner.
Yep.
I mean, a right in, a right out, and it'll be a good business there. I think it's a good one.
Okay. This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to develop 0.62 acres located at the southwest corner of 300 East Telegraph, with the applicant proposing 2 commercial pads, one of which will be Donutsville and the other which will be disclosed at a future point. I recommend that does this have to go from the city council?
This
No.
does not.
This
This
does
does
not, so that we approve this conditional use permit with the findings and conditions stated by staff.
This Commissioner Van, I second that.
Chairman, if I may, just to note for the commission that this proposal and the motion recommended by or made by Commissioner Musso, the representative for Mike's Welding isn't present tonight, but this reflects something that the representative of Mike's Welding would also be in support of.
All right, I have a first and a second. Individual voting. Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Fitzonfu,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Hanson. Oh, Hanson. I'm an aye as well.
We need samples.
I literally was like, Hanson, wake up. Oh my gosh. That concludes 8A. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, gentlemen. And we look forward to eating some donuts over there. The last thing that we have to discuss this evening is I will not be in town in 2 weeks. I will be gone with no possibility of changing plans. We need to come up with a pro tem chair of the planning commission. Drew, is that something that would be for one meeting or for long term, or does it matter?
Right now, just do that one meeting.
Oh, the 19th?
The 19th for one meeting, we need somebody to take over and run the meeting. The salary is the same.
I don't know that anybody can up yet.
I think I just heard Sheila nominate himself. Did you?
No.
Commissioner Musso, I nominate Commissioner Shields as the chairman pro tem for the 19th.
Boo.
I need a second. I can't second that. I would, but I can't.
I second that.
All right, I've got a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Commissioner Shield will be the commission chair pro tem for the meeting on May 19th. And last, I don't know, Drew, did you have anything you wanted to finish with or add?
I just want to know how many of you are going to be able to make it tomorrow night to that special council commission?
Time is that?
6 o'clock.
With dinner.
Phil?
Dinner will be provided.
Oh, yeah, come on.
No, it is. The
Donut
presenters are bringing dinner to you guys.
So are
So
we talking pizza?
I think it's, well, as I used to say back home, it's burritos from Circle K, but frozen burritos from Circle K through the
There's no
microwave.
public hearing either. So it's a discussion meeting, not a hearing.
Yeah, it's not like they're bringing you a presentation on a possible plan unit, plan community development north of like the Parkway and Main Street up there and just south of the reserve.
I wasn't able to open that link, so I'm glad Denise sent a
It's
new one out.
changed. She
Did
changed.
you get
She changed it in
I
the
got a revised one.
Did you get the copies of the
Dropbox links.
didn't
Dropbox
get
link
in.
didn't
I didn't
work.
get
It's
any
on
of
your
that.
drop
It's
it
in
into
your
your
packet.
packets. Yeah.
It's
So
in
because
your-
the link didn't work, they just took the documents and dropped them into the packet.
Oh, okay.
So it's in your planning commission packet.
All
That's
right.
how I had.
Yeah, just go back to your tonight, right? It's not in
Tonight.
tonight's thing, but on a different
Um,
thread, or is it? Or it's
no.
just under packets, right?
It's in your,
So pull up packets for your planning commission, right? And there's a link, then it says for the meeting. Is that what you did?
Mine doesn't do that.
theirs doesn't do it. Mine does because I went and made her do it.
We're,
Hey, what I'll try to do is have Kathy resend that to.
So
I mean,
it's
be
in the,
looking for just like, we'll send it out like we do your normal
do that,
packets.
yeah.
it's,
I'm not here tomorrow. You're gonna have Denise do it.
they need to have
Is
it
there a way to
shared.
get those out?
We
or
just-
We'll find a way
Kathy,
to
we
get it
just
out.
need to share the planning commission folder.
Yeah, it doesn't pull up on my iPad. The
Planning commission.
Planning
You
commission
have one of the
packet.
newest iPads though, too, and that might be an issue with it. So
Well, I had Steve.
So I am able to pull it up off of the second email that she sent.
did you get it? Then you say you got the,
A revised email?
and it has their
Washington
little
City email.
slideshow in it.
Is it called green something? I can only see green.
It should be
area.
Green Springs something. I can't remember what they're.
It should have went to
Yes.
your
It's a
city
zip
count.
file.
Yeah.
You open the zip file.
So I've got a yes,
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be here.
yes, yes, and
Yes.
no.
Yes.
Okay. All right, you'll be there and I'll be there. So, okay,
Oh, it's a PDF thing.
Yes.
it might be.
Yeah. The second delivery was PDF. Yep.
It's a
What-
Cole West deal.
No.
No, this is a Clyde company.
That's good. That was
The good news is you're not going to be asked to make a decision tomorrow.
Okay.
What you were sent were the slides that they're going to show you tomorrow. And so again, I know a lot of you like to see the slides before they're presented at the meeting so you can think about them and mull them over. But yeah, what was sent is what they're going to present to you tomorrow.
Is this the high-end community that's wanting to be built over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of went from the last PCD you did out there with the Warner, what do we
Long
even call
Valley?
that? Long Valley. So we thought, you know what? These guys kind of saw that process go. They thought it'll be helpful in the long run to get this out in front of you now, and then you'll know that then it's going to get turned over staff. Mostly Public Works goes through and
Thanks, Brandon.
all the water, the sewer, and all those things, streets and all that get mulled over. I've kind of had a tentative look at it. I mean, I spend some time in it, but it's mostly a Public Works thing. PCDs are about trigger points, volumes, meet demands, et cetera. So I just look at technical zoning, does that kind of fall in line with the general plan they did? They pretty much, Sittler gave them what they'd kind of pre-done. They moved a few things, but it's kind of all in line. It'll be a really cool place. I don't know if they're that far along yet.
Because I drove along the Parkway today, and I mean, it is pretty up there.
It's gorgeous.
It is.
You really hate to screw this up.
No, they're taking into account all the natural, the rocks and things. They're having features. They're doing trails, a trail head, if not two of them. you know, not only allow just their people, but the rest of the citizens to go up there, park in a parking lot, get on the trails to go into the reserve. I mean, they're taking all
Take
that.
you up to Church Rocks and all that.
Where you can get in across the fence, it'll take you on any one of those trails that are already in the reserve.
So we'll be able to get up to like the elephant trailhead. and
Something
Elephant
like that.
Rock.
Yeah, that's still, they're still working out some of those.
Yeah, they'll have
Um,
to give you access to those ones, because those are existing accesses. The question is, does the project give any new accesses? And usually when you're doing a 600+ acre parcel, we like to make sure we cover all the accesses, not just the existing ones. And so that'll be part of the conversation. The hardest one is probably the golf course. You know, they've been talking with staff about that. And the biggest challenge is, where does the water come from? Right. And there's no water waiting for a golf course out there. And so this will be conceptual. They've been working with staff preliminarily for some time now. They're going to still have to work with staff for quite a while before anything comes before the commission or council. But it's 600+ acres. It's a large project. And I think they want the commission to just see the concept, so that you've seen it before they start showing up with more specifics. Private. Yeah. Entrada style, correct.
So are they going to use the reclaimed water? Do we have
We
that?
don't know.
Do we have that access? I mean, because I was listening to the radio and they were just talking about it in St. George, how all like Desert Color and all that has to put in the purple pipe now for the reclaimed
We've been
water.
requiring people purple pipe since I've been here.
Oh, is it?
For
Okay.
15 years. All the subdivisions that have been built since I've been here in 06 have purple pipe already in them. That was a requirement when I started here, which I thought was cool. So we've got miles and miles and miles of irrigation pipe ready to be charged.
But it's dry.
It's dry. It's
Right.
empty.
There is no reclaimed water waiting to be put into those pipes. And that's the challenge right now is
That's what I was
But
wondering.
the pipes are in.
They have it.
Properties
So
have them
there's-
stubbed.
there's two sources of it. One would be just from your sewer treatment plants, and St. George already with their treatment center, they essentially already deliver all of their reclaimed water to other golf courses and public parks. And so the Washington City reclaimed water would come from the Warner Valley Reservoir, which again doesn't exist yet. And even when it does exist, that reservoir is going to largely comprise of salty water from the Virgin River that's not going to be very good for plants. So it might be good for other secondary uses, but as far as
not going to go golf course,
keeping pristine grass alive for a high-end community, it may be too salty. And so also the water district isn't selling just raw water anymore. So Coral Canyon has a water line from Quail Creek. They just get raw lake water, but that's not salty either, right? Because that's diverted above Laverican, not below Potempe. And so the water issue is probably the biggest issue for the golf course. The culinary side, I think it can be covered, but just the raw water for that type of a use is there's not a good answer for that yet.
They're going to have to look and find the source.
Well, so that's where it's commissions and councils wrestle with. If it's not a golf course, it might just be more density, right? And is that what a city wants? Does the city think that a private golf course is public space that's valuable to the public? I'm not sure Entrada Golf Course is, although it looks nice as you drive past it, I guess. And so those are all public policy issues that the commission and council are going to have to wrestle with.
So back to the purple pipe, I mean, so St. George gets all of theirs from the sewer treatment, which we dump into.
Yeah. So in theory,
so we can know that.
So we have a right in our sewer water that we send there. We've never exercised that right or demanded it, but with future conservation issues and trying to squeeze water out of as many turnips as we can. I was going to say turds, but turnips, but, right. The future probably will include Washington City exercising some right to some reuse water because we have a right from the water that we send to them. Or maybe Washington City says we just want to treat our own sewer and keep all of our reuse inside our own system. As water rates go up and scarcity goes up, I think cities are going to make decisions about all those type of things that'll change what's currently doing. But yeah, right now there's no water to put our purple pipes are dry and there's no source waiting to make them wet.
Kind of sad.
So come tomorrow and see
Yeah.
what they got to show you. And again, there's be a lot to work through in the process anyway. You got
The issue of water supply needs to be heightened because for a long time, we've been issuing permits without asking the question of where's the water coming from. We've just assumed that we've got a regional supply line that's always going to be wet. And the day is going to come when we don't have enough water in the line to service the new applications. And that day will come quickly if the Lake Powell pipeline doesn't come. The district's whole projection model is based on the Lake Powell pipeline providing future need. And if that pipeline either is eliminated or gets stuck in litigation, with this type of growth or even, moderate growth, we're going to hit that threshold sooner than later.
But there's always, the state requires every community to have that. Well, all of a sudden now, we don't have a 25-year plan.
Yeah.
Because the plan was based on the pipeline, and now the pipeline is, where it might have been looking like this, now it's maybe looking like this or a little down. I mean, it depends on who you talk to.
For 15 years, the presentations have had the pipeline built into it, right? The other thing that these plans have always done is they presume a growth rate. And as we know, growth rates aren't static, right? And the type of growth
exploded.
Yeah, the type of growth we're seeing right now, we're probably under 5 years if we don't get a pipeline, right?
We're already working,
So
you'll see things coming down.
Yeah, we're meeting with the district already on that very issue, which is, so if you go to the communities that aren't on this pipeline, let's use Vail or Enterprise or any of the others up there in our county. If you want to go build a lot, to get a permit, you have to satisfy where your water's coming from. Every single permit has the where's the water coming from discussion. And we haven't, because we just always had this regional source. But the future might be that it's that, oh, you want to build 30 lots? Okay, what water are you bringing to the system? And that's a tough way to be because we've kind of grown up without having to do that. But that's the reality that you face if you run out of water. Yeah.
That's just because they're in a drought like the state is in essence. So his are based more on drought because all their stuff is 95% of the water up north. It all sits on those mountains in a white powdery stuff till it melts every year. And they all their models rely on that snowpack. When they don't get it like they have to go into drought conditions and they'll start limiting the use of water, which you should start seeing here sooner than not. Said nope.
Just don't have it.
So it's not coming because they can't give them that water and they say we can't give it to you.
It's manufacturing.
On paper suck.
Yeah.
That's where I worked at a paper mill in my younger days. Sucks a lot of water, more than almost any other kind of industry.
Yeah, there's a number of industries that are heavy on water usage that we just don't have that raw water available anymore. And so I think in the shorter term, you're going to see the communities and the governments working together to try and probably conserve as best we can. And the Lake Powell pipeline has been talked about for 15 years, but it's not approved. And there's no guarantees as to when it will be approved. And if growth continues on a really sharp curve, there will be tough conversations that this county hasn't had to embrace. They'll have to come up.
They've been buying those over the years, from what I understand. The Conservancy District has. They picked up a lot of those that the farmers don't use anymore that did, and they sell them to the Conservancy. So they've been doing that for quite a while, picking up what they could while they've been waiting on the pipeline decision.
Yeah, the Conservancy District has ownership or options to own most of the water that's available in the county. as far as just quantity, there's a lot of smaller holders that have, 2 or 3 acre feet here and there, but as far as total quantity of water, they've about cornered the market. The challenge is all of the agricultural water that diverts south of Potempe is so diluted with salts that it doesn't. If you ever wondered why does Hurricane Valley grow good peach trees and not Washington Fields, it's because Hurricane Valley diverts above Potempe and Washington Fields diverts below. So Washington Fields water is good to grow about alfalfa and barley. But as far as any other sensitive crops, it's just too much salt, right? And so the district, that's what the Warner Valley Reservoir has always been conceptualized for, is it'll collect all of the salty water. They'll mix in with it, reuse from sewer plants and whatever, and hopefully dilute it enough that it's usable for some desert scaping perhaps, right? But if you were to apply that in broad application, like to a golf course, you'd have so much salt that you'd probably not have a successful course.
They'd have to treat it like they do the Green Springs with the boiler up there.
Yep. And Green Springs so Washington City's fortunate because as far as water source, we've about got as much as any city in the area, largely because of where we're founded, which is where most of the available water was to the pioneers. Green Springs is largely watered by Washington City's own water sources up there. And then we've got other springs and wells. But even Washington City's built out to a point where we don't have enough local sources of water to provide to our current connections, right? We've got more connections than we do have source. We can, but that's because we also have the regional line, this 6 foot wide pipe or whatever it is that runs across county that the water district fills and then charges us to pull from. So we've got a meter that they charge us for every month. But if the water district says, look, we can't allow you to pull any more than what you've taken, we don't have any other sources that can allow us to keep developing while other communities get shut down. It's a county-wide concern because supply is county-wide.
We're just starting to see the beginning of the big developers hitting Washington, with Garrett Horton and Sunrock. I mean, it's not very, 600 acres is a lot of land to take down over time.
Yeah.
And you got 2 developments now going, and somebody else is going to be looking at something.
Well, we've already heard of the big one at Tokerville, right? It's more than 600
We
acres.
lost one of our employees to that project. So
it doesn't bring any water. They don't have any water to contribute, right? They're asking for water from the regional supply also. And I'm sure there's other big projects that we haven't heard of because they just haven't publicized yet. And so the projections are a lot bigger, right? We've heard the numbers of what they project, but the water supply doesn't match that yet. And if the pipeline doesn't come to fruition, there's no other sources out there. It's a significant source. Yeah.
So California and Nevada didn't suck it all up.
Well,
Las Vegas has been trying to do their part. In the last 20 years, they've been paying people to take out their lot and putting desert landscape in.
but they don't own the rights. That's the thing. They've just been buying it from other
so
people.
Nevada and California have overutilized their allocation. Utah has underutilized it, but the real question is, what is the future hydrological system going to look like? Is it going to get drier? Or is it going to get wetter? Will the lake have enough water to fill a pipeline or not? And those are all variables that we really can't know. But what we know is if a pipeline's not approved and water's not delivered, you'll not have nearly as many plats coming to you in a couple of years.
Maybe having one meeting a month.
Planning commission, yeah. In a couple of years, you'll just be dealing with remodels.
We'll be buying older places to tear down.
So it's Southern California model.
Yeah. Plan. It'll be like that.
Wait a minute. Okay, well, is there, Van, do you have anything you want to say tonight? Or is there anything we should say to Van? High five, thanks.
I'm seeing my kids grow up right before my eyes, and they're really young. And it's not nights like this.
I was shocked. I thought he was still there. He was until he heard you were going to do it.
We've been grooming him, but yeah.
No, it's true. I think, Van, anybody that's been through it, like my kids are in their 20s now, and I would agree 100%. And I stepped away from many things when they were younger too, and I totally get it 100%. And you're doing the right thing, to be honest with you.
I can remember my oldest son turned 5. I was going to keep on.
Yeah.
And the good news, Van, is life will give you more opportunities for public service. Just because you step away for now, this opportunity and kind of blessing of self-government, it'll be around in 10 years. You'll still have that chance.
Well, I would like to recommend, what's his name?
This guy?
Yeah.
Dick something.
I don't know his name, but our Coral Canyon guy is here. Council mayor kind of bring that person in, and so, but they have to put their name in. You know.
Could we have done anything different tonight as a commission? To shave off 2 hours of that meeting? Or
I think you did a good job. I think not reading.
That's a hard thing. Yeah, I would have just said, you wrestled a lot because someone just didn't want to pull the trigger. Go ahead and pull your triggers. Sometimes, but it's hard to say that. But yet, if you think about that, sometimes when you're sitting there debating and thinking, if someone just pulled the trigger, at least you get more debate quicker on someone throwing a motion out. Is all. I'm just giving you samples of what you might, don't always hesitate. Sometimes you sit, everybody's hesitating. It's okay to pull the trigger. Get it out there, because at least emotion's out there. And you feel a lot more like, okay, at least get some ground to stand on instead of trying to stand in open.
Well, and we're kind of joking up here. It's like, it doesn't matter what the hell we do, because city council can do whatever they want to do anyway.
Oh, but this will be good for them to take it. At least they'll say, hey, this has been mulled over. The people can't say nobody's thought about it. You guys thought about it for after the public hearing another hour and a half. So they can't say it didn't get its fair due.
I think you
That's what I love
accomplished
about it.
you accomplished two things. You had a room full of citizens that wanted to feel heard, and you held a hearing that was sufficient to allow them to feel heard. And I
Because
think
there
that's
won't be a
important.
hearing at the city council.
I think that's important.
Preliminary plat.
Yeah.
So that's why that's a good point.
The second thing is they saw you wrestle with a tough issue. And so nobody's leaving feeling like, gee, these guys had their minds made up and didn't listen to us, right?
yeah, it can go to city council as a rejection, and they can have their chance to fight against
Absolutely.
it.
And there are
That's
some
what I thought we
developers
were
who
gonna
say,
do.
give me I'll take the denial. Don't sit here and,
That's what I thought they were gonna do. I was
well, I
happy
know
to
2 or
reject
3
it
that
and
just
let it
say,
fly.
instead of sometimes getting a condition they don't really want to mess with, they'd rather just take it to the body. But well, because he knew months ago, I told him when they first started, I said, I don't want to see this until then. But then I thought, you know what? It's like I was talking, I think you in the hall, saying, sometimes I think they do need a carrot or a bone to get at least some momentum, to get some money to take care of that stuff. And that's how development kind of works. If you can get some in, get X amount of lots, it helps pay for that part. And then the next few lots pays for the next part. And then. So
Because they got 3 or 4 different developments going.
I know.
It's not like they need money from this one to keep.
No, but I can't, but it's hard because I don't want to look in that, because then I start weighing out who deserves and who doesn't. That's when you start, you get into treating people different, and it starts getting noticeable, even though you don't notice it sometimes. So that's why I take all that and I just treat them all the same.
Saving $5 or $6 million by not having to put the
Clubhouse.
clubhouse in.
Well, I was talking to Jason. He said that there's water.
Floodplain.
Floodplain there. It's a year out.
Well, yeah. So let's end your meeting and then we'll.
Okay. Looking for a motion to close the meeting tonight, gentlemen. I got a first and a second. Meeting's closed. Thank you.
I did.
Oh.
Just make it up. It's okay.
Give it to Van.
In this case, just Van did both of them.